Sound check test 1 2 1 2. Sound check test 1 2 1 2. Let's see if we are good on YouTube. Let's get Rumble and X going. Live video starting over on Facebook. Let's see if we are good on Facebook. Okay, we are live on Facebook. Facebook acting kind of funny sometimes, but anyway, we're good on Facebook. We are live on Rumble. Looks like things are working for now on YouTube. Let's get Instagram active. Let's get TikTok active. LinkedIn, we are getting started. And again, I mentioned this before. I will mention it again. I keep mentioning it every now and then. If somebody can create an application that with one button you can go live on all the apps or whichever ones you want to connect, same way you could do with a bunch of other things. There are plenty of apps out there. If you want to post to social media, they will let you just connect all the different apps through API. You connect all the different apps, then you make one social media post, and then it can go to all the platforms. If somebody can do that for the live streaming option, then you'll be putting yourself in a good position because you'll probably have a lot of customers from the beginning. I don't know why TikTok is looking grainy. I don't know what's going on TikTok. All right. This is the issue. When you're streaming on multiple platforms, you got to use multiple devices, and there's something happening here. So as y'all are coming in, shout out to y'all. Maybe this is something new TikTok is doing. I have no idea why this looks like this. Why does the stream look this way on TikTok? Can y'all see me and hear me clearly on TikTok? It's looking grainy on my side, but I'm seeing it's telling me there's a number of people in here. It looks like TikTok might have made some updates. As y'all are coming in, all right, well, good morning. Thank you, Crystal over there. Thanks, Tanya. Yeah, it looks grainy. I do look grainy. I don't know why. I've never had this issue with TikTok, so I have no idea what's happening over here. There's always something. Every day is something with these different streaming platforms, but as long as you all can hear me and you can see that I'm actually moving around, hopefully it clears up as we're talking. Topic here today, and someone on Instagram said you can't see. What do you mean you can't see? Can you hear me? Instagram, can you hear me and see me? I don't know. Maybe TikTok will clear up. I have no idea. It's a little clear now, says Tanya. I've never had it get grainy like that. I have no idea what's happening, but we are going to get into what we need to get into. We want to make sure everybody is able to hear me and see me where you're out. If you're on Instagram, Carpenter said you can't see on TikTok. So then people are saying it's getting clear. Somebody just complimented my tie. So I don't know. All right. So we're going to get into it anyway. Hopefully y'all can hear me. And you really don't necessarily need to see me. But what I'm going to say here today, you can listen to this even if your eyes are occupied on something else. The topic here today is why MAGA is actually great for the United States of America. I did a live on Friday. I'm recording this on a Monday because some of you are going to be watching this on replay. By the way, all the replays of every live stream I ever do are always on my YouTube channel. The link to my YouTube channel is in my profile on TikTok. If you're not on TikTok, then just go to YouTube and look up my name. My name is Dre, D-R-E. Last name is Baldwin. All the replays are there. I'm live on YouTube right now, so all the replays are on YouTube. And just in case anything ever happens with any of these other platforms, you can always get my streams on YouTube. So I did a live on Friday explaining what the challenges people have to MAGA, people who are anti-MAGA or think it's just a bad thing for the United States. I broke down what each one of them were and why, and what I think about them, whether they are legitimate or not. Today, we're going to get on the other side of the conversation and talk about why MAGA is great for the United States of America, because I'm a a firm believer that if you are a critical thinker, you must be able to make both sides of any argument. Even if your personal opinion is on one side of the conversation, you should be able to argue the other side of the conversation for several reasons. Number one, because then you will better understand or be better able to articulate to yourself and to others why you have the opinion that you have, because you have proven to yourself that you understand both sides. Because a lot of people will pick one side of a conversation, never try to understand the other side, and then they're very strong in an opinion. It doesn't make you necessarily wrong, but at the same time, you haven't thought critically about it if you haven't considered why the other side believes what they believe, and not in a way that you're just saying, well, they believe that because they're just dumb. But what are the real reasons why they believe what they believe? That's what I did on Friday with one side. Today, I'm going to do it on the other side. Another reason why you want to do this is such that if you ever get in a conversation with someone who has the opposite opinion of you, you can respect and understand why they have the position that they have, and you will be better prepared to respond to their position and what they believe. So if you are a MAGA supporter listening to this, you need to listen to the live that I just did on Friday, because there are people who hate MAGA. And if you ever have a conversation with them, you should be able to understand in civil discourse why they believe what they believe and maybe have a legitimate response to them. And if you're a person who if you're a person who actually dislikes MAGA, you need to listen to that, because I'm going to tell you why people who support it, why they support it, and what are some reasons why they have that position. Again, not making it about, well, the people who have a different opinion from me, they're just dumb, or they're just misinformed, or they're just uneducated, or I know the normal things that people say when people disagree with them. But there are legitimate reasons why people have the positions that they have, and we need to understand those, because again, if we're going to bring back logical and respectful discourse in the United States of America, especially around the subject of politics, everyone needs to understand both sides of a conversation, understand why people believe what they believe, even if you're not doing it because you are necessarily trying to have your mind changed. It's just so you can have more respect and understanding of why people believe what they believe, because people have different reasons for thinking what they think. And you are not here to change people's minds, nor am I. I'm not in the business of changing people's minds. I'm just in the business of making sure people understand what's going on, what your options are, and why people may have the thoughts that they have. And all that said, introducing myself, for those who don't know me, my name is Dre Baldwin. That's D-R-E, Baldwin. Some people know me as Dre all day. I'm a former 9-year professional athlete. I'm author of 40 books. I've done 4 TEDx talks. I own this company called Work on Your Game. What we do here, because people always ask when they're listening to me, what exactly do you do? What I do is not talk about politics. I talk about this in these lives because it's a way of using my best skill, which is breaking down complex things into simple understandings. I just happen to use social issues and current events as a frame, simply because people always have opinions on current events and social issues. So I just use them, not because this is my actual line of work. My actual line of work is helping professional entrepreneurs systematize and scale their businesses from the 6-figure level to the 7-figure level. So if you happen to be a lawyer, a doctor, and these are people who own their own practices. So lawyers, doctors, you're in the finance space. These are the kind of people, contractors. These are the kind of people who I help build up their businesses, whether you already have a business or you're maybe getting out of being an employee and going independent. Those are the kind of people who I work with. You can find out more about working with me by, well, one thing you can do is Google me, but you can just go to workonyourgameuniversity.com or dreuniversity.com. I went and grabbed that domain name a couple weeks ago because somebody in the comments on TikTok said Dre University. I don't call it that, but when they said that, I said, you know what, I should get that domain name. So I went and got it. So if you go to dreuniversity.com, you can find out something more about us and what we do also. Point number 1, we're talking here today about why MAGA is great for America. Number 1, America first. America first. This has been Donald Trump's stated mandate and stated goal from the very beginning when he got into politics. We are going to put America first. Now, the question may be, well, why would he even need to put America first? And why is that something that even stands out? I mean, doesn't every administration and every president put America first? And by contrast, the answer is no, because over the years, we got to think who came right before Trump. Right before him, we had Obama for 2 terms. And before that, we had George W. Bush for 2 terms. Before that, we had Clinton for 2 terms. And it started to appear Donald Trump was smart enough to read the room when it comes to the United States of America. And by the way, I'll answer all questions and comments at the end. So if you have a question or comment, I'm not ignoring you, but actually I am ignoring you. When I'm done with my points, then I will respond to questions and comments. Okay, so you can either hold them to the end. And if you're on TikTok, you probably don't want to post it yet because I'm not going to see it when I start scrolling at the end because I can't see everything from the beginning. Wait till I get to the comments. So Donald Trump read the room and he understood that many Americans were kind of disenfranchised with the way America was moving. It seemed like a lot of administrations were focused more on things happening outside of the country, and they weren't paying enough attention to people in the country who felt like things were not going the right way, especially after the economic issues we had between 2006 and 2008, and then the aftermath of that. So Donald Trump said, okay, we're going to make it all about America. And he told you exactly what he meant. He said, we're going to enforce our borders, not close them, but we're going to enforce our borders by not allowing so many immigrants to come into our country. And those who do are going to have to do it the right way. And those who do it, they are violating what's happening in this country. We're going to get them out of here. We're going to make sure that people who are here in America actually have opportunities for jobs and upward mobility, and they can take care of themselves and pay their bills. And we are going to get out of these agreements in which it seems like we are giving more to other countries than they are giving to us. So we're doing all this giving, but we're not receiving from these people. Why are we in these unfair deals that we've been in? And we're going to put more of our focus as a country. We're going to put more of our focus on helping the people in here instead of helping everybody else and kind of being the cop of the world. We're going to focus more on what's happening in the United States of America. And we all know that this is a good message. Again, not because you agree with it, but because of the result. When Donald Trump started putting this out, Americans responded in a resounding way that this is exactly what they wanted. He read the room properly, and this is why America First has been his thing from the very first campaign. He already did 3 campaigns. Excuse me. In the very first campaign, his whole thing was, we're going to make America great again. So that, again, focusing on America. And then he said, America first. We're going to put America first in everything. He also said, we're going to get these companies who are maybe American-based companies. You can't just send all your manufacturing and all of your labor out of the country, because that means there are fewer people here who get to have a job, but you're still making money by selling things to those people who don't have a job because your manufacturing is outsourced. We're going to do things. He can't force it, but we're going to do things that influence American-based companies to bring more of their manufacturing and labor back to the United States. And the reason for that is it gives more jobs to people who live here because the labor is happening here in America. I talked about the flip side of that yesterday. I mean, not yesterday, but Friday in my last live. So anything that I'm saying here today, if you have a counter to the point, I understand there is a counter. That's why I did an entire live for damn near 3 hours the last time I did a live explaining the counterpoints. Today, I'm giving you the other side of the conversation. So those of you who were not here on Friday, understand that this has already been done. So Donald Trump focused on, and Donald Trump / MAGA said, we're going to make it all about America. And there were a whole lot of Americans. And this is also a key thing about making it America first. There are a whole lot of Americans in what many people refer to as the flyover states. So not the coastal places, but the flyover places where a lot of Americans, especially if you are coastal, if you're living on one of the coasts, you know that those states are there. But a lot of people in those areas, and I'm coastal, I'm from Philadelphia, I live in Miami, that we look at those states on the map and we're like, how many people are there actually people in these places? And the answer is yes, there are a lot of people in those places. And a lot of those people are blue-blooded Americans. And they believed that they were being ignored because the political elites, again, our capital is in Washington, D.C., which is a coastal place. It seems like they're just focusing on the places where there are masses of people concentrated, i.e. the big cities. There's a lot of the big cities in America are on the coast. You got Los Angeles, you got New York, you got Philadelphia, Boston. There are a lot of the biggest cities and the highest populations are there. And then you have, of course, you have places like Texas, but Texas is a very big state. Everything is spread out. So a lot of Americans immediately got it as soon as he came out and said this. And one thing we can be sure that it means is that being a person of the world seemed to the politicians we had before, specifically Barack Obama, who previously was right before he preceded Donald Trump, seemed like they were focused on being these global citizens more, than they were focused on the United States of America. And it doesn't make you wrong if you want to be a global citizen. The problem is if you're the leader of this country and you're focused on the world, people who are here in the country are like, well, wait a minute, why are you focusing on them and them and them? What about us? What's happening over here? And it's not that the previous regime didn't do anything to pay attention to what's happening in America. You all have to understand that when you are competing against another person, especially in a battle of opinions, such as a political election, your job is just to draw a clear line of delineation between their approach and your approach. And that's what Donald Trump did expertly. And is the reason why MAGA was and has been and is, I think, the concept is successful. Whether you agree with the actions of the current administration is a different story, but the concept was successful because it worked. I mean, that's how we judge things, outcomes. Number 2, we're talking here today about why MAGA is great for the United States of America. Number 2, stronger border, stronger security, and immigration control. Donald Trump came out very clearly on this from the very beginning. This has been the strongest point of his entire 3 campaigns, is that we're going to enforce the border. Now, some people say, well, Donald Trump came out in 2016 and he said, we're going to build a wall. You remember the whole build a wall thing. Now, is there a wall covering the entire southern border of the United States right now? No. Did they start to build the wall? Yes. Are they going to complete the wall? We don't know. Does the wall, the literal wall, does that actually matter? The answer is no, it does not. And I'm going to tell you why it doesn't matter. I'll also go further and tell you why. Let's say they had never started building a wall. Let's say they never actually literally laid a single brick or bar or whatever type of wall they were building. Let's say they never actually built the wall physically, but Donald Trump had went out and campaigned on this whole thing. We're going to build a wall. Y'all remember Build the Wall, right, from 2016? Let me tell you what Build the Wall actually means. First of all, before that, let me explain again. I've explained this 100 times. I'm going to explain it 100 more times, probably 1,000 more times. Donald Trump does not speak literally. Most politicians, when they say things, they mean it literally. Donald Trump is a person who speaks directionally, and he speaks in metaphors. So that means when he speaks, you should not take everything he says literally, because that's not what he means. This is just his normal style of talking. He's not even doing it. He's not even thinking about it. This is just how he talks. He's always talked like this, even before politics. When he says something, he wants you to get the direction of his point. Don't take every word that he says literally. So one of the things that he does expertly to control the news cycle is he'll throw out an idea of something that he's allegedly thinking about doing. Everybody will start reacting to it. He has no actual intention of doing the thing, but everybody reacts to it and talks about it for 2 days. And during those 2 days, while everybody's reacting to the thing that he floated out there, the trial balloon he floated out there, now he's actually doing the thing he wanted to do, but nobody's noticing it because everybody's still talking about the thing he said 2 days ago. He does that all the time. He's been manipulating the news cycle for 10 years straight, doing this exact same thing. So when Donald Trump speaks and he says something like build a wall, it's a metaphor. What does that mean? Build a wall means we're going to enforce our borders. We are not going to keep allowing people to come in here without proper documentation. And we're going to focus on serving the people who are already here with proper documentation, who are actual citizens. That's what build a wall means. It doesn't mean a literal wall. Okay, it's a metaphor. And that we are going to make sure that the border is enforced the proper way. And all you need to understand that between Donald Trump's first election in 2016 and now, it's not like the government, Congress specifically, and with the president signing it, hasn't passed a bunch of new laws when it comes to the border. Do y'all understand that? There's not a bunch of new laws that have come into place. The only thing that has changed is through these executive orders, which I never heard of an executive order before Trump and then Biden and now Trump again. I didn't even know what they were, but now we all know about them because they're always talking about them. All Donald Trump did was but command deeper and stronger enforcement of the laws that already exist. That's what Build the Wall meant. We already have laws for immigration. It's just that these other administrations are not really enforcing the laws. That's how we were able to we got so many people coming into this country. What we're going to do, again, this is the image he was given to the average voter. What we're going to do is we're actually going to enforce the laws at the border, and we're not going to let people come in as easily. And this border is not going to be as porous as it has been up to this point. That was the image he was putting in the minds of people. And again, this is not about whether he was literally telling the truth. And some people say, well, look how many people Obama deported versus how many Trump did, and Biden, et cetera, et cetera. It was actually Obama who deported more, depending on which administration, which term you're talking about. The point was not none of those things. It wasn't about factually who did this and literally was this right or wrong, or is he quote unquote lying? People say Trump's lying all the time. He's not lying. What he's doing is influencing and persuading. One of the things you all have to understand about influence and persuasion is, first of all, you can't be too detailed and you can't be too smart if you're trying to influence a mass of people. Here's the reason why. The masses of people ain't that smart. Those of you who are experts at what you do, you understand that when you're talking to other experts, yes, you can go into super high level detail and tell them the specifics of things and they will understand it. But how many people are there who are actual experts equal to your level of expertise at the thing that you do professionally? Most of you know it's a very small group of people. So if you go to a family gathering or you're at a barbecue or you're at some networking event talking to a bunch of people who don't do what you do professionally, and you have to explain to them what you do, you have to keep it really simple so that they understand what the hell you're talking about. If you try to be too detailed and sound too smart, you go over people's heads, therefore they cannot understand you. Now, this may not matter if you're a chemical biologist, if that's even a thing, and you explain your detail only to the 300 people in America who understand it on your level of expertise. But if you're trying to sell your idea to 300 million people like Donald Trump, you must keep it extremely simple. This is why the concept of build a wall was a great idea, because it created a metaphorical image in the minds of everybody, whether you voted for him or not, that we are going to enforce those borders. He got the point across with a 3-word phrase: build a wall. Now, as you see, I just took 6-7 minutes explaining what he meant. He explained it in three minutes. When you're trying to talk to 330 million people, you have to keep things very simple. And that's why he was able to galvanize so many people to support him, because they got it. As soon as he said build a wall, they got it. Got the point. Now, when I'm talking to you all, I'm assuming most of you are highly intelligent individuals in the top 10%, 90%, 90th percentile of intelligence. Now I can break it down in detail and I don't lose you. But if I was trying to run for president, I couldn't do what I just did, because most of the people who are listening are like, all right, this guy, I don't quite understand him. All right, they're not getting it. You have to understand, most people are not that smart. Okay, not you. You're really smart, but most people ain't that smart. All right, you get what I'm saying. So the reality is, a big part of the MAGA movement was focusing on serving the people who are already here, rather than trying to make America more of a quote unquote melting pot and bringing in more people from the outside. Now, I understand that this alienates some people who maybe are immigrants, or you're friends with immigrants, or you're in a family that has immigrants, or maybe you're a second generation immigrant. Did Donald Trump alienate a lot of those people when he came out with this concept? Yes, he did. We all know that. All right. Some of you are still alienated to this very day because of what he said. Maybe you are personally offended. Maybe you are secondhand offended because you're friends with some people who have been immigrants into this country. And maybe you're an immigrant and you didn't have a problem with it because of your perspective. Maybe you're an immigrant, you do things the right way, and you don't like the immigrants who do things the wrong way, make people like you look bad. Did he alienate some people with this? Yes, he did. But you also have to understand that when you're trying to sell people on a concept, and especially when that concept is based around you, one of the smartest things you can do is create an us versus them dynamic. And when Donald Trump got in the game, that's the first thing he did. The first thing he did was create an us versus them dynamic. All right, you got them, these lifelong politicians, because who was he running against? Hillary Clinton. What is Hillary Clinton? I've asked this question for the last 4 times I've done live streams. Name what Hillary Clinton did professionally outside of politics in her life that you know about. The answer is, for many politicians, you could swap out Hillary Clinton. Let's say Barack Obama. You could say George W. Bush. You could say Bernie Sanders. You could say Joe Biden. You could say Kamala Harris. What has any of these people achieved professionally outside of working for the government? The answer is nothing. None of these people have done anything. So when Donald Trump came in, immediately he drew a clear line between these career politicians who are only doing things to help themselves, and I'm going to do things to help the everyday person. Because even though he came in, I believe he was already noted as a billionaire when he came in, he's closer to the everyday person than a politician. What do y'all think? I would say a billionaire who made his money doing business as an entrepreneur out in the world is closer to relating to the everyday person than a politician who's been in politics their entire life. If I had to pick between the two, I'd rather go with the billionaire. Personally, I go with the billionaire over the politician any day of the week. Because if you look at, there are polls that go out every year. Jeff Bezos shared this. He was talking to his team at the Washington Post about how they're not going to get into dealing with politics as much anymore. He said that the least trusted entity in the United States has been Congress. Those are the politicians. Politicians are the least trusted entity in the United States of America, but they actually moved up in the poll, and a new group took the last spot of the least trusted entity, and it was the mainstream media. The point being that people just don't trust politicians. This is a general idea. The average person, citizen in America, does not trust a politician, and they would trust a billionaire who made their money, again, out in the world, out in the streets, like Donald Trump, before they would trust a politician. Because, I mean, there are many reasons. I may do a whole live just on that subject sometime in the future. So whether you like this or not, this is a legit argument. The legit argument is that we're going to enforce the borders. And again, he alienated a lot of people, but that was okay, because there were enough people who were not alienated that, well, we saw what happened over the last 10 years. Moving on, number 3. We're talking here today about why MAGA is great for the United States of America. Again, I did a whole argument about why MAGA is terrible on Friday. So if you missed that one, the replay is on my YouTube channel. And the link is in my bio. My profile on TikTok. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube, TikTok listeners, and make sure you also follow me on Instagram. My links are both of those links are in my profile while I'm talking here today. Number 3, energy independence focus. This is not so much about the concept of energy itself. It's about the independence of America, because again, Donald Trump's campaign has been very cohesive. Everything is fitting exactly what he said. His whole thing, the high level, is make America great again, right? Then right under that is America first. And then under that are all these things that are all about prioritizing and focusing on the United States of America. And yes, do some people not like this? Of course. And do some people love it? Yes. What I'm telling you here today is why people love it. Energy independence focus. Again, this is not an area. I'm not no expert on solar power or drilling or fracking or any of those things, but I don't need to be, because that's not the point. The point is the focus of what he is getting people to pay attention to. And he's continually pushing that he wants America to be as independent as possible. We don't want to be dependent on other countries for anything, energy being one of those things. Then we know energy matters. Right? We need energy right now for these lights to be on, for me to be doing this live and live streaming and Wi-Fi and all those things. If we're dependent on other countries for these things, if something happens to those countries or something happens to our relationship with those countries, now we don't have access to energy. And that's a problem. So Donald Trump wants to make us more independent on these things, which means we're going to, let's just say, lower the volume on our relationship with these other countries from which we're getting things like oil and anything else we may be getting from these other places. Now, this comes at a cost. A lot of people don't understand this, and Donald Trump can't say this in his campaigns because he would lose the very people whose attention he just got if he tells them this. The flip side of this is that the cost may go up. If we become more dependent on our own energy rather than someone else's, one of the reasons why we take other people's energy instead of using our own is because it's cheaper. But if we start using our own, it's going to cost a little bit more money. Same thing when it comes to the tariffs and the trade agreements and all of those things. It will cost more money, and there will be some short-term pain. I believe Trump did acknowledge that a couple of weeks ago. He didn't make a big deal about it, but he did acknowledge it. And of course, his opponents are using it against him. But the point is, folks, everything in life has a trade-off. There are no perfect scenarios. Everything has a trade-off. If you're getting a resource from someone outside of yourself right now because it's cheaper than you doing it on your own, and you decide you don't want to be dependent on them anymore and you want to do it on your own, it's going to cost you something, at least in the short term, that is more than what you were paying before. This is the cost of independence, folks. Freedom is not free. Independence is not free. All these things come at a cost. And a lot of people do not understand what those costs are until those costs really start hitting you. And then a lot of people don't realize that this is the price of having things your way. If you want to have things your way in any aspect of your life, there is a cost you have to pay to get things your way. And if you want things to be cheaper and easier and more kind of out of your hands to where you're not responsible for as many things, well, the cost of that is you have to give up some of your freedom and give up some of your independence. Freedom and let's just say independence. These things are actually, freedom and independence are the same thing. It was another word that is escaping me right now. I'll come back to it in a second. The whole point is these things are traded for each other. Freedom and security. That's the word I'm looking for. Freedom and security are, in many ways, they are the inverse of each other. Give you an example. Those of you who own a business, for example, you have the freedom to do what you want. You can set your own schedule. You can spend all day working if you want to. You can spend no time working if you want to. You can go on vacation if you want. You can spend the whole day playing with your dog or your kids. You can spend the whole day goofing off on social media if you want. Nobody can hold you accountable for it. Nobody's going to do anything to you because you own your own business. You have the freedom to do anything that you want. The trade-off of that freedom is that you do not have the security of knowing that there's a paycheck coming on Friday. So if you do nothing all week and you do nothing to generate money, you have nothing set up to generate money, then you'll have no money. So the cost of that freedom of doing what you want to do is that you have no security. You have no safety net of knowing that you're getting paid every 2 weeks or whenever you get paid if you had a job. Those of you who work at a job, if you're currently employed, you have security. At least as long as you're employed and as long as that job keeps you employed, you know you have a check coming every 2 weeks or every week, and it's direct deposit. And generally, depending on what kind of work you're in, let's say if you're a salaried employee, you pretty much know how much money you're going to get every 2 weeks. You have the security of that money coming in, and you can plan your entire life around that. Your lifestyle, your car, your kids, your daycare, everything that you pay for, you can plan it around the fact that you know you have that check coming in for at least this much money every 2 weeks. The trade-off of that security, those of you who are employed, is that you do not have the freedom to do what you want to do. If you own a business, you say, you know, I just want to fly and go on vacation for 3 days. You could, because you had the freedom to do so. But if you have the security of that check, you can't just do that whenever you feel like it. For the most part, there are, of course, you have sick days and vacation days and whatever, but you get my point. Point being, if you want to be free, you have to give up a little bit of security. There's a risk involved in that. And this is the reason why this is not the point of the point of the conversation here today. But this is the reason why not everybody should be an entrepreneur. Because to be an entrepreneur, you need more than a business idea or a payment processor or an LLC or any of this nonsense that you hear people talking about when they're talking to you about starting a business. Two most important things you need to start and run a business in the United States of America is you need a very strong stomach and you need some balls. Those are the two things you need. Not an LLC. You don't need a website. You don't need a business card. You don't need a damn logo. You need a strong stomach and you need some balls. And then the third thing you need, if you want to get tangible, tactical, you need a customer. Those are the three things you need to start a business: strong stomach, balls, and a customer. That's it. You got those three things, you can be an entrepreneur. If you do not have these three things, keep your job. Anyway, it's not the topic here today. So as we continue, this whole thing about America being energy independent, as I already explained to you, there will be a cost. There will be a cost to this. If Trump actually goes through on actually making these things happen, there will be a cost for it, and everybody has to be okay. Well, actually, we don't have to be okay with it. If you voted for him, well, we as a country voted for him, so this is what we're getting, whether you want it or not. So you don't want to build your frame of anything on land that you don't control. It's something I tell people all the time about social media, especially entrepreneurs who use social media for marketing and engagement and attention purposes, such as what I'm doing right now at this exact moment. I tell them that, yes, use social media, use Instagram, use YouTube, use TikTok, use Facebook, use LinkedIn. What's the other one? Use Rumble. And there's one more I'm forgetting, whatever it is. Use all the social media platforms to draw some attention, get people to know who you are, and move them deeper into your world. Do that. Everybody does it. I'm doing it right now at this exact moment, talking to you all. At the same time, you cannot base your business on social media. You cannot base your business on your Instagram account or your YouTube channel or your Facebook page or you got 100,000 followers on TikTok. I see a lot of times when I'm on social media, I'll see somebody's Instagram or X. X is the one I forgot. So someone gets on X. Y'all know that as Twitter. You used to know it as Twitter. Someone gets on one of those apps and I'll look in their profile and their bio and it'll say how many followers they have on TikTok. I see a lot of people saying this. So I'll see somebody on Instagram. They got like 5,000 followers, but in their profile, it'll say 30,000 followers on TikTok. Now, why does that? I don't know why that matters, why people point that out, but whatever. The problem with building your business to where, and when I say building your business there, this is what I mean. Your only way of engaging with the people who can possibly give you money, because that's what makes business is that people are giving you money. If the only way you can engage with the people who give you money is by logging onto your social media profile, you are in a precarious position. Because what if your account gets hacked or blocked or suspended or deleted or whatever? Now you have no business because you can't even talk to your customers. Any of you who's on here right now, think about how many followers you have on any social platform, whichever one. How many subscribers, followers, likes, whatever they call it. If you get kicked off that platform today, what happens to those people? If you have 10,000 followers on Instagram right now and you got kicked off Instagram at 12 o'clock this afternoon, what happens to those 10,000 people? Nothing happens to them. They're still there. They're still on Instagram. The only person gone is you. So they're not actually yours. So when you call them your followers, you don't have any followers on social media. None of you have followers on social media. And if you want to prove it, just delete your account and tell me what happens to all those followers. Nothing happens because they're not yours. All right. Every follower you have on social media is that platform's followers. So if you got 1 million followers on Facebook, Facebook has 1 million followers. You don't have 1 million followers. You got 1 million people who know about you, but they're not yours. Because if they're yours, as soon as you leave, they should come with you. If I have 1 million followers on Facebook and I delete my Facebook account, that means I should get an email from Facebook that says, hey, here's your 1 million followers. Since you're leaving, they got to go with you. That doesn't happen. Everybody knows that doesn't happen. I'm saying all that to say, if your business is based on a social media platform, they own you. You don't own anything. They own you. Because as soon as they restrict your access to those people, you got a problem. What does all this have to do with Donald Trump and MAGA? The following, that if our need for energy is based on someone else's platform that we don't control, i.e. other countries, as soon as they have a problem or they decide they have a problem with us, we got a problem. Or they decide they want to raise our prices, we got a problem. Donald Trump is trying to get us out of that problem so that we have full control, more control over what we're doing. And I want you all to understand that comes at a cost. You're going to have to come out of your pocket, at least in the short term, for us to be more energy independent. And this applies to everything else too, not just energy, but that's the resource that I'm bringing up here. Number 4, we're talking here today about why MAGA is great for America. And again, I'm going to take all questions and comments at the end. Number 4, government deregulation. So we all know Mr. Musk has jumped into the Trump administration with this DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency. And that's one of the things that he's trying to get to. I think he's going to perform a lot more surgery on the government than what he's done so far. If you think what he's doing is a lot, just keep watching. And what Donald Trump wants to do, one of the things he's talked about is less regulation with the government, which means in general, making it easier for businesses, people like you all who own businesses, big businesses, small businesses, to do your thing without having to go through so much red tape and so many layers of bureaucracy. Personally, just telling you from my own personal experience and personal preferences when it comes to doing business, is I hate layers of bureaucracy. I do not like layers of bureaucracy. What I mean by that is, if someone reaches out to me and say Dre, or they reach out to my assistant and say, hey, we're interested in doing some business with Dre, we want him to do this or that and the third, we don't like dealing with more than two people. In certain situations, I will make an exception for dealing with three. Most of the time, I don't like dealing with more than two layers of people. What does that mean? Two layers of people means the assistant to the boss and then the boss. I don't want to talk to 4 people. I don't want to talk to 8 people. I don't want to talk to 10 people. I don't want 7 people CC'd on the email. I don't want someone to tell me, well, hey, I'm interested in working with you, but no, if you're interested, the interest is mutual. Then what I have to do, this is the person talking to us, I got to go to my committee of 8 people and we got to talk about it. And then we'll come back to you. As soon as they get into that, I'm like, no, my eyes start glazing over like, no, this is not going to happen. I don't want to do that. I don't like layers of bureaucracy. That's also known as red tape. I'm not a red tape guy. I remember this guy reached out to me from college several years ago, and it wasn't that many years ago. How long ago was this? Maybe 2021, something like that. And he wanted me to come speak at some event for the department that he ran at the college. He was the head of this department. He wanted me to speak to an event that was part of his department. And we're talking, and he says, and I say, yeah, I'm interested. I can possibly work. He said, well, I got to tell you up front, it's not just my decision. As soon as he said that, I knew the event probably wasn't going to happen. So it's not my decision, because I got to go through this person and this person and this person. And the next step is for us to have a conversation with me, you, and 2 other people. And then we all got on a call and we start talking. And I'm like, these guys work in this red tape place. I could never do what they do. I couldn't do what they do. I can't work in places where I got to go through 5 people to make a decision. And then there's all this back and forth and red tape. And the reason why I knew it wasn't going to happen is not because they don't hire people. They do bring people in, but I knew they weren't going to bring me in. And I'll tell you why they wouldn't bring me in, because look what I'm talking about right now. How many layers of bureaucracy you think you can go through in an organization before somebody is offended by the fact that I'm even saying what I'm saying here today and says, nah, not this guy. All right, bring somebody in, not this guy. I don't like the fact that he said this. I don't like the fact that he's somehow, some way supporting Trump by saying the things that I'm saying here. Or he said this on his podcast 2 years ago. He has this video on YouTube where he said that. See, when you deal with different layers, so many layers of bureaucracy, it's easier to piss one person off. And now the whole deal is dead. See, when I'm only dealing with 2 people, I only got 2 people I could possibly piss off. When I'm dealing with 12 people, that's more chances that I've offended you with something that I said. And they all got Google. And I'll tell you something about myself. This is the reason why this is just a personal thing with me, because I will talk about topics that most people don't want to talk about. And I'll say things that a lot of people may disagree with, but I'll explain exactly why I believe it. But at the same time, half the country does not agree with anything being said about Donald Trump / MAGA that is even neutral, let alone positive. So the fact that I'm doing this live right now tells you that half the people in this country would never want to do business with me just because I'm saying this. Not because I'm wrong, not because I'm doing anything offensive or illegal, just because of the fact that I'm even willing to say it puts me in a position that half the people in this country would not want to deal with me on any level just because. And this is what I mean by layers of bureaucracy. So when you're dealing with an organization where 15 people all had to say yes for me, someone like me, to do business with them, what's the chances that all 15 of them don't have a problem with what I'm talking about right now today? Very slim. And this is why, again, I like to deal with 2 layers of people, no more. Because at least I know the person who reached out to me in the first place, they probably know me from something like this. So then the flip side of it is, when someone does come to us and say we're interested in working with you, they already know exactly what I'm about. They know exactly what I'm doing. That's the reason why they reached out. So they're actually a stronger fit than someone who is just surface level interested. I'm saying all that to help you all understand government deregulation is about taking away layers of bureaucracy for those of you who do business with the government. I don't do business with the government, but if I ever did in the future, I would prefer there be fewer layers of bureaucracy. Good thing about doing business with the government is that they usually have the money. That's a good thing about doing business with the government. Any of you who does government business, they always got the money. That's a good thing about any of you knows anything about, well, especially those of you who are entrepreneurs. If you're any type of consultative work, you know, one of the biggest challenges, especially if you are a higher ticket business or person or consultant, you know that one of the biggest challenges in your line of work is that sometimes you talk to someone who wants exactly what you're offering. They know they need it. You know you can help them. The problem is they don't have the resources to pay for it. The good thing about the government is that they always have the money to pay for it. If they don't have it, they'll go get it. That's a great thing about working with the government. The challenge about working with the government is that as administrations change, you might have a great deal under the Biden administration, but then as soon as Trump comes in, your deal is done, or flip, or vice versa. And also at the same time that sometimes the government moves very slowly. Actually, let me correct that. The government always moves very slowly. And if you're going to do business with the government, you better be thinking on like a 6 to 12 month, sometimes longer than that, timeline between the time the conversation starts and the time you actually have money in your account. So if you're okay with doing that, then fine. Personally, I don't like doing it. I like having a conversation with someone. They're interested. I'm interested. We can come to agreement on the terms. And within like 72 hours, the money's there. That's the way I like to do business. You don't have to be like that. What I'm explaining to you is when you work with the government, that never happens. Okay. You work with the government, you ain't getting your money in 72 hours. You might get your money in 72 weeks, not 72 hours. I like to set the 72-hour timeline, and I don't like to deal with a bunch of different people, and I don't like people being slow. The United States government is all of those things. Slow. There's a lot of levels of bureaucracy. And again, there's a long timeline. I ain't into that. All right. All that being said, moving on. We're still on this fourth point here about government deregulation. You remember drain the swamp, right? Remember Donald Trump saying drain the swamp back in 2016? I often bring up that he didn't really talk about that much in the 2024 campaign. You know why he stopped saying drain the swamp? Because when he got into the swamp in 2016 to attempt to drain it, he realized, well, I guess it was 2017, right, when he became president. He got in the swamp to attempt to drain it. He realized, oh, there's a bunch of alligators in here. All right, it won't be as easy to drain the swamp as I thought it would be. And that's the problem with draining the swamp. There's a lot of gators in there who are not going to allow Donald Trump to drain the swamp. One of the things he talked about, I can't remember which podcast it was. It might have been Rogan. And it might have been, what's the white guy's name? I didn't finish listening to this one. I believe it was Schultz, Andrew Schultz. And that one was like 3 hours too. I think I'm about halfway through listening to it. I can't remember which one he was on, but he talked about this. That the reason why he accepted so many people into his cabinet the first time around is because they had already been vetted by DC and by the powers that be. And it was easier to accept someone who had already been vetted than to try to bring in someone who had not been vetted yet. Vetted just means they did the background on you and said, all right, this person is okay if you want to possibly look at them to be part of your cabinet. So he accepted a bunch of people who he didn't really know too well and he wasn't sure he can trust. And a lot of them basically tried to thwart everything he was trying to do. So basically his own team was working against him in his first campaign. He learned from that. And then he got a 4-year vacation while Biden was president. And then he came back in 2024 and you saw how he brought with him. You see his cabinet now. So he brought in Tulsi, RFK, Kash Patel, Hegseth, brought in JD Vance. Who else did he bring in? It was somebody else he brought in. People had a big problem with. I can't remember who it was. Pam Bondi, all these people he brought in. Why? Because he brought in people who he knows are on the same page as he is and are actually going to help him rather than try to stop him from doing what he wants to do. And this is how he might be able to actually do a little bit of drainage of the swamp. Is he going to drain the whole swamp? Probably not. You need more than 4 years to do it. It's taking 100 years to get here. It's going to take more than 4 years to drain the whole thing. But I think he's going to make some progress that he couldn't make during his first campaign, again, because he didn't know what he didn't know. So he had to go through it. Now he experienced it. Now he has a chance to actually do it the right way. And again, he even brought in Elon, who's technically wasn't, he didn't have to go through the same process as his RFKs and Tulsi's and all those other folks. But as we can see, Elon's having an impact. So Donald Trump is trying to bring it back the way the government was supposed to work. In case any of you didn't know, they may not be teaching this in school these days. They probably don't. The way the founding fathers designed the government is that it was supposed to be a public service. The government, i.e. the people who work there, is supposed to be a public service, not a job. You know how I have some coaching clients of mine who have kids who are, let's say, like between 8 and 15 years old, and they will volunteer, the client themselves, they will volunteer to coach their kids' soccer team or basketball team or whatever, cheerleading, whatever, not the dads, but the moms who will volunteer to coach the cheerleading teams and things like that. And the reason they do it is not because they make money from it. There's no money to be made. They're volunteering their time because they're giving back to their community or town. Of course, their kid is involved, so they have a reason. They have an incentive to be involved in it. That's the way the government was supposed to work. The government was supposed to be a public service, meaning if you are a member of, let's say, Congress, what we have now today, you showed up And let's say on the weekends, again, I'm speaking metaphorically here, everybody in Congress showed up on the weekend. You flew in from Iowa or Nebraska or Texas. You flew into DC. All of you met together. You had some meetings and talked about the things that need to be talked about. You made some decisions. And then at the end of the weekend, you went back to the place that you're allegedly representing, so you know what's actually happening there rather than claiming that you know what's happening while you're living in Washington, D.C. That's the way the government was supposed to work. And this is not supposed to be a full-time job, because you were back home doing your actual job or running your actual business, given to the government or donating your time to the government. Maybe you got a stipend for doing so, but this wasn't a full-time job. It wasn't a career. You couldn't be Joe Biden back then. What's Joe Biden done professionally other than being in politics? What's he done? You can't name me things. He hasn't done anything. What's Barack Obama done? What has, again, I named these names earlier: Kamala Harris, Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton. What have they done? George W. Bush. So y'all think I'm not just picking on Democrats. What has any of them done besides be in politics? Nothing. This was not supposed to be possible. All right, this was supposed to be a service to the people. And this is where I talked about this before. And again, I'll probably do a whole live on this, why people don't trust the government. I actually will do a whole. Should I do a live on that? Put the word trust in the comment if I should do a whole live on why people don't trust the government, because there are many reasons. All right, this is one of the biggest reasons. I've said this like 3 times in the last week, and I'll say it again when I do that live, if I should do it. Okay, so a lot of you want me to do that. I will do that. And one of the biggest reasons is that you have this conflict of interest. If I am working for, let's say I live in the state of Florida. So let's say I'm a representative. I'm in Congress from Florida. I'm representing whatever district it is here in Miami. And there's a bill on the table that I can either vote for or against based on what it is. Now, here's the issue. On one hand, I want to vote for the bill because voting for this bill will actually serve the people in my district the way that they voted me in to serve. It actually would align with what the people in Miami want. And if I was actually living in Miami and not Washington, D.C., I would probably know that. I may even know it even though I'm still living in D.C. All right, so I know the people in Miami want me to vote for this bill. So here's the question. What reason would I not vote for the bill? Here's the reason. Because if I vote for the bill, the problem is the current president, whoever it is, they don't like the bill. And if I was to vote for the bill, then the president might notice that I didn't vote for it. He might call me out on his social media or at a press conference and say, hey, Baldwin, Congressman Baldwin down in Miami, he voted for this thing. You know what? I don't like the fact that he did that. So the next time I'm up for re-election, the president is going to campaign hard for the person who's going against me, which might cost me my career. And if my entire career has been in politics, now I have to weigh. Now I got this catch-22. I can either do what's right for my constituency and possibly lose my seat in the government, and I have no other skills because I've been in government my whole life, or I could do what is going to serve my career and screw the people who I'm supposed to be serving. This conflict of interest only exists because people can be in politics their entire lives, because we don't have term limits and people can get into Congress and be there forever. Just this past weekend, I had thought of a couple names that I wanted to look up and see what happened to them. I looked up Bob Dole. I looked up Newt Gingrich. And you know that both of these guys were in Congress for like 30 years, both of them. I think it was Bob Dole I was looking up. Let me see if I can find it, because I was looking in ChatGPT and they were answering this question. And I think it was Bob Dole. He was in Congress for so long. I'm like, how the hell? Let me see it. Let me see if I can find it. All right. So Bob Dole was the one I looked up. He was a longtime U.S. politician, served several key roles in government. He was a senator from Kansas. He was a senator from 1969 to 1996. This dude was in the Senate for 30 years. And he was a Senate majority leader 2 times. He had a couple stints as that. Was basically a leadership position while in the Senate. Before that, he was a U.S. representative. So that means he was in Congress. So from 61, he became a representative. He became a senator in 69, 8 years later. He stayed in the Senate until 1996. He ran for president in 96. He lost to Bill Clinton. And this dude was in politics from 61 to 96. That's 35 years, longer than some of you have been alive. If we had term limits, Bob Dole could not have done what he did. What Bob Dole do other than that? Again, all I asked was, what was Bob Dole's? All I asked what was his role in government. So maybe he did other things. I don't know. Then I asked about Newt Gingrich. Same thing. He was a congressman from 1979 until 1999, and they say positive things about him. He did a bunch of good things. He left Congress. Then he remained active as a strategist and author. He ran for a Republican nomination in 2012. I don't remember that. Mitt Romney beat him out. But then that was 2012 he was still in. He's still alive and active in media and political commentary. This guy's been in politics his entire life. Again, it doesn't make him a bad guy. Problem is, it creates these conflicts of interest between, are you serving the people like you're supposed to be, like we voted you in to do, or are you serving your personal interest in your career? This is the biggest reason why people do not trust the government. This right here, this very point. And let me write it down while I'm talking to you all, so I'll make sure I don't forget to do this one. I'll put in my notes here. So why we don't trust government, and I'll just put it as live, so I remember to make some notes about this. So I will do that live. I might get to that one this week. So the whole point of Donald Trump came in and said, drain the swamp. And the reason why he had credibility when he said drain the swamp, as opposed to, let's say, Obama saying we're not going to do politics as usual. Because Obama said that too, right? Then Obama said a whole lot of we're not going to do politics as usual. He did a lot of that. And he had credibility because he was relatively new. Obama was a fresh face. When he got elected, how old was Obama? He was in his 40s, right? He was relatively young when he got in the game. He didn't have a ton of political experience, but he had some. And again, he hadn't done anything but be in politics other than maybe have a law degree and practice some law. And I've talked about that, why a lot of people in politics either they got some experience in law or they just been in politics their entire lives, because it's a very structured path being in the legal profession. Again, not knocking anybody in the legal profession, but this is one of the reasons why you see a lot of politicians have law degrees. And other than that, they haven't done anything. So anyway, not Donald Trump. Barack Obama had some credibility with this no longer doing politics as usual because he was relatively new. But at the same time, he had less credibility than Trump had. Trump had more credibility because Trump was already what? How old was Trump when he first got in? He's almost 80 now. So 10 years ago, he was already in his 70s or 60s. He had been around for a long time doing a whole bunch of things that had nothing to do with the government. So he had more credibility than Barack Obama had, saying, we're not going to just do politics as usual. We're going to get all these lifelong politicians out of here. And again, that was 10 years ago. As you can see, it hasn't happened yet because it's very hard to drain the swamp. And there's a bunch of alligators fighting to keep you from draining the swamp. You ever seen National Geographic? Or fighting an alligator ain't easy. So anyway, moving on. Number 5, we're talking why MAGA is great for America. Number 5, focus on law and order. And by the way, I'm going to respond to questions and comments when I'm done. Focus on law and order. This one, I talked about this in the last live, where the people who do not like MAGA and Donald Trump, they seem to be on this whole thing about criminal justice reform, which I'm not really a fan of the concept. It's not that criminals and people who are in the legal system do not deserve to be treated humanely. However, I've always had an issue with this focus that the political left had decided to plant their flag here. I have no idea why. It's very foolish. They decided to plant their flag on this. We need to protect the criminals and take care of the criminals and make sure they're getting treated the right way, or the suspected criminals. Or what about the victims? And what this did was, it was a layup. I believe this was a layup for the conservative side politically, the political right. The easy layup for them that, okay, these people want to say that they're the ones who want to protect the criminals. So it ain't enough people in America who are on that boat for that to be a strong point that you want to make. This is a very bad decision that the political left has made. They need to fix this over the next 4 years. They need to fix this before the next election, because this is one that you don't want to, this is not a hill that you want to lose your life on, of where protecting the suspected criminals. Because again, there's not enough mainstream support. Out of 330 million Americans, how many people are on this page of, hey, we got to protect? It doesn't make any sense. There's not enough of them for, you can't win an election on that. So when Donald Trump comes out and said, we're going to be the party of law and order, again, this is easy. This is easy because a bunch of people, even people who have been politically leaning left voters all their lives, which one do they support? They usually support the law and order side. And why is this? Because most people are not criminals. Most people are not committing crimes. Most people are not suspected of crimes. Most people have no intention of ever doing a crime. So when someone says law and order, what is the average person thinking? And this is what you all have to understand. See, this is not about no George Floyd or the cops are bad or these things that people like to say. When I hear law and order, the first thing I'm thinking is that the streets are going to be safe. Police can do their jobs, and therefore a civilian who is a law-abiding citizen like me has less to worry about because the police are going to keep criminals from bothering me. That's the first thing that I'm thinking, whether I support Trump or not. That's what law and order means. What do I want? No law? I want lawlessness and chaos. Why would you want that? If you're not a person who breaks the law, and you're not a person who wants to break the law, you don't even think you're capable of breaking the law, and you're no type of savage, why would you want lawlessness and chaos? All that does is make you a mark, and it makes you a potential victim of a criminal, of someone who is a savage. Why would you put yourself in a position, political left, of being the supporters of that? Again, it doesn't make any sense. And I believe if the Democrats have any smart strategists on their side right now, this is something they need to be talking about, like, actively. They shouldn't even come out publicly and talk about it yet, but they need to get themselves right on this one, because this was a terrible mistake. And I believe they jumped into this, of course, in the summer of 2020. when you had the George Floyd situation, that video going viral, and you had the Breonna Taylor thing, and then you got BLM, which came back from the Trayvon Martin situation from over 10 years ago. And the political left decided, okay, we're going to be the ones that support this idea of going against the cops and defund. You remember the defund the police and all these bad ideas that sounded good in the moment because people were very emotional. In summer 2020, people were very emotional about the George Floyd video going viral. And again, going back to Trayvon Martin and BLM getting all this, they had a wave of, let's just call it support during that time frame in the summer of 2020. The problem with this is that emotions like that, they go up for a while, but then they kind of calm down. And when people got a chance to calm down and look at what was actually happening, they said, wait a minute, we don't want this. We don't want to support criminals. We don't want to defund the police. Why would we defund the police? Again, most people ain't criminals. So when you defund the police, all you're doing is making it easier for the criminals to do what they want to do. It's kind of like, all right, we got a hen house over here. All right, let's defund the people who protect the hens and let the foxes do what they want to do. All right, you ain't gonna have no chickens left. That's a bad idea. So the political left, again, they need to get on this. I think they are aware of this problem and they need to do what they need to do to fix it. I also believe that on the flip side, this is like a chess match, that MAGA / the political right are not going to let them take the ball away. They're not going to let them get back on the side. They're going to keep them over there and keep them away. It's kind of like a boxer. You keep using your jab so they can't come in. They're going to keep using their jab and keep them away. And the political left has such positioned themselves into this corner that I don't think it's going to be easy for them to get out of it. And the only way they can get out of it is if the political right somehow makes a grave mistake and tries to get on their same side, which they have no logical reason to do so. Even I'm saying all this, even as a black man living in America, right? As a black man living in America, I'm completely on board with the concept of law and order because I don't break laws generally. I'm not planning on breaking any laws. I'm not going outside thinking, all right, who can I victimize as a criminal out here? I like there being cops. I talked about this on Friday. When I go somewhere and I see cops, I'm happy. I'm not nervous. I'm not anxious. I don't try to avoid police officers and these things. You hear a lot of black people saying this. Most of them are just pandering, talking shit. They don't actually believe it. They're just saying shit because it sounds good. And they know that they say it to some white person. You're just going to let them say it. And if you argue with them, they'll call you racist. And I understand the whole game. All right, they can't pull that shit with me. All right, I like cops. When I go to the play area in the mall with my son, I like there being a cop standing right there. So I know nobody's going to come over there acting like they ain't got no sense. That's exactly what I want. I went to the play area at a mall recently, and there was somebody over there. He didn't have any kids with him, and he was trying to talk to people. I think he was some type of business solicitor. I told the people in the mall, like, yo, y'all need to put a cop over here. Y'all got cops in front of the Gucci store and the Louis Vuitton store to protect people from stealing a damn handbag. You need to have a cop next to where the kids are. All right, they more valuable than the handbags, and they need to do that. And if they don't do it, I'm gonna tell them again. And it's all gonna be documented. Might need to take them to court. All right, for not protecting citizens the way it's supposed to be, but they want to protect some fucking shoes. So the whole point is I like seeing law enforcement officers everywhere that I go, because that means I won't have to take matters into my own hands. Because if I take matters into my own hands, then I might end up with an assault and battery charge, or I'm gonna have to appear in front of a cop because I defended myself. Even if I'm right, I defended myself. Now I got to pay a damn lawyer to defend me, even though I didn't do anything wrong, because there's some idiot over here who wants to act like they don't have any sense because there weren't any cops there to deter this fool from acting stupid. And now I got to pay for that. That makes no sense. So I support any organization that's about law and order because I follow the law and I like order and structure, and I don't want idiots around me in any way, shape, or form, because if I got to deal with them, then that's going to cost me something, which makes no sense whatsoever. Even if it is a trusted system says self-defense, even if it's self-defense, you still gotta appear in front of a judge. You still might have to call a lawyer, and you still have to pay a lawyer. You know how much lawyers cost for criminal defense? They're not cheap. And that's the reason why a lot of people go on the law. All right, you will always have work, all right, if you're any good. And at the same time, it costs you time because you actually got to go to court. Now you should be at work, but now you're at court. All right, court is usually from 9 to 5. And usually what do we do from 9 to 5? Usually we're working. All right, so this is costing you on so many levels just because we don't have enough law and order. So I want more cops. Do not defund the cops. We want to refund the cops. Actually, give the cops a raise. All right, give the cops a raise. That's what Donald Trump should be doing. Next, we're talking here today about why MAGA is good for America. Standing up to the country that starts with a letter C. I cannot say their name, especially because I'm live streaming on TikTok. Country that starts with a letter C. Y'all know who they are, right? There's only 3 powers in the world right now. is us, the United States. There's a country with the letter R, and there's a country with the letter C. So that country. So Donald Trump has made a big deal about standing up to this country over the years because, well, for several reasons. He uses some examples, but there are bigger reasons. One of the biggest ones that he uses, biggest examples that he uses is that over there, any of you who sells any type of product, you do any type of physical manufacturing of products, especially if you sell them online, such as on Amazon, you know that your stuff is getting knocked off all the time, right? By people in that country, not the country itself, but people in that country are knocking things off all the time. If you go on Amazon, you try to buy any type of product, whatever it is, let's say you look for a specific name brand that you know about, then you'll see other companies or other listings of a product that looks just like that, but is like half the price, and it's a knockoff. And where do those knockoffs come from? They're not coming from the United States of America. Those knockoffs are coming from that country with the letter C. There's a reason why so much manufacturing. And if you look at any physical product you have, if you look at the little tag that says where it was made, you'll often notice it was made in usually somewhere in Asia, often the country with the letter C, maybe a country with the letter T. They're often manufactured in those places, or Honduras, Mexico. Why is that? Is because the labor in those countries is extremely cheap compared to America. And I'm not even saying this as a negative, because if I run a company, let's say I do something like I make dress shirts like this, right? I manufacture dress shirts. If I have a factory in the United States of America, what's the minimum that I can pay one of you to work in my factory? Give me a number. Give me a dollar amount. What's the minimum amount you would accept to work as an hourly employee working in my factory making white dress shirts? Give me a dollar amount. Everybody who's in the comments. What's the minimum you would accept as an hourly rate for that job? Nikki said $40 an hour. Or I'm not hiring you. Cash flow with AJ said $29 an hour. Unearthly said $25 an hour. 219 Muda said $40. I got some 15s. Okay, some of you would take $15 an hour. I got some 20s. Okay, so somebody said 25 as low. Not for this work. So I see a bunch of 15s. Liz Smith said $12.50. All right, Liz, you're hired. All right, so those of you, most of you said somewhere between $15 and $20 an hour, maybe up to 25. If I can do my manufacturing so I'm seeing a bunch of 20s. If I could do my manufacturing in the C country in American dollars, how much are we talking? $3, $2, $5 is a lot less than what you all are asking for. It's a lot less than what you Americans need. And it's not that Americans are wrong for this, because we have a high standard of living in America. It costs a lot to live here. It costs a lot to live in the United States of America. In other countries, the cost of living and also the what do they call it? Like the wage laws are a lot different. Now, you can get away with paying people a lot less money over there, and people will accept it. You can't get away with that here in America. You can't even open your business if you're only offering X number of dollars an hour. Over there, it's a lot cheaper to hire people to work. And listen, those people over there are smart, just like we're smart over here. They know how to knock things off, and they can knock your stuff off because they got so many people working for them for cheap. So they just look at this. They'll go buy your product, right? Let's say somebody in China, let's say I have like this microphone right here. Let's say I made this microphone, this American made, and I charge $150 for the mic. This mic actually literally costs $150. So someone over there will buy the microphone, like the actual microphone, pay $150 for it. They'll get it in their little factory. They'll take it apart, and then they'll go to their workers and say, hey, I want you to make our version of this exact same microphone. We're going to sell it for $99. And now they're undercutting me on price. And their product is similar to mine. It won't work as well. It eventually is going to stop working because it's cheap. But most customers are rather going to buy the cheap one than buy the more expensive one because they don't understand it. I understand it now. I bought enough cheap products, especially on the electronic side, that I know better now than to buy the cheap one. Any of you who's buying electronics, buy the more expensive one, and you won't need to replace it. You buy the cheap one, you're going to have to buy 4 or 5 of them over the lifetime. But this, I'll never have to replace this. If I don't break it by accident or step on it or lose it, I'll never have to buy another one. But if I bought the cheap version of this, like the $60 version, guaranteed within a year, I'll need to buy another one, then another one, and another one. I made this mistake with, like, I got the Beats by Dre headphones. You know those headphones, Beats by Dre? So I remember I wanted some headphones to run with, and I bought the over the ear ones. And I told my assistant, go find me some headphones that I gave her the specifications of what I wanted. And she found me something that were like $30. And I bought the $30 headphones. They worked for about 6 months. Then they stopped working. Then I bought them again, and they worked for about 4 months. Then I was about to buy them again. And I said, okay, why I keep buying these $30 headphones? Let me just spend $200 and get the Beats by Dre. And I haven't had to replace the Beats by Dre. All right, that's the point. So the cheap stuff you got to be careful of, but they sell a lot of them because most people buy the cheap stuff. Point being, I'm bringing all that up to say this. Donald Trump, he uses that as an example, and it's a real example because a lot of people who sell things here in America are being hurt by the fact that they're being knocked off by these other companies, and the country, the C country, is really not doing anything about it. They're not doing anything about this. I have had content on YouTube for 20 years. My first 5 to 10 years that I was online, there was a lot of basketball material. And somebody reached out to me probably about 2008, 2009. It was a man. He was a fan of my work. I don't know how he got to find it on YouTube because in the C country, there's no YouTube. You can't access. There's no YouTube, Facebook. You can't access these apps when you live in those countries. Maybe you can use VPN, but I don't know exactly how it works. They have their own versions of these apps. So there's the C country's version of YouTube, and it's all in Mandarin. And this guy reached out to me and said, Dre, I'm a big fan of yours. I want to see if we can work together so I can get all of your content off of YouTube, translated over to the C country's version of YouTube, and we can get your stuff out there. And then once we get the monetization right, you can actually make money off your content over there, because this is what he explained to me. He said, Dre, every video you have on YouTube right now, it has been downloaded, copied, and put on the C country's version of YouTube. The thing is, even though people are watching it and they're getting benefit from it, you're not making any money off of it because you don't own the content. Somebody else just pirated all your stuff. And we were talking about it. We were never able to make it happen. But he sent me a link to the site, the Mandarin version, I guess you could say, of YouTube. And even though I couldn't read it because it was all in Mandarin, and this is before Google had the translating thing, I just looked up my name. I just looked up my name, Dre Baldwin, because at that time I would put my name in every title of every video I put out. And I saw all my videos on there, and you can see the view count numbers. And I'll tell you this, that C country is a very big country. It has a lot more people than the United States. I believe 10 times more people than America. I think they got 3 billion people in that country. We only got 300 million. It's 10 times more people. The numbers that I had on their version of YouTube were like every single video was like 10 times more than the same video on American YouTube. 10 times more. But I wasn't able to monetize any of it. That's like 10 times the money. And I was missing all of it. The point is, I'm bringing that up to help you all understand, it's not just physical stuff. It's digital stuff too. We get knocked off. Americans get knocked off all day, every day by people selling things over in that country. And we have no control over it. They're not trying to stop it. And there are Americans who run a business who really feel like they're hurting because of this. And any of you who's in manufacturing, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They're knocking your stuff off all the time. And that's money that's not going in your pocket because they're knocking your stuff off. And again, nobody's doing anything to stop it. And at the same time, that country is a very powerful country. And they own a lot of the debt that the United States has. So we're kind of in a precarious position with them, which is why I shudder to think what kind of situation we'd be in had Kamala Harris won the 2024 election. Where we end up in relation to that country, because they own a lot of debt the United States has. Those of you who don't know, the United States is $36 trillion in debt. Trillion with a T, not billion, trillion. And a lot of it that country owns. And I was reading somebody talking about this. They said that when the conflict between, or any conflict between the United States and the C country comes to a head, is not going to be a hot war. It's not going to be shooting and people dying. It's not going to be that. All it's going to be is that country slowly over time is just going to financially overtake the United States. And they're already in the process of doing it. That's happening right now while we speak. They are slowly just positioning themselves to financially overtake us to where they are the most powerful country in the world. And we are no longer in the top spot. We're still in the top spot for now. But keep in mind, Trump only has 4 years and then he's done. Who's going to maintain that? And if the political right does not hold the administration and the political left takes over the White House in 2028, you're in this situation. Those of you who are Americans, we're not going to be number one anymore. And they might get to the point where they are dictating things instead of us. Right now, we're still dictating, but do not get arrogant or be arrogant, so arrogant as to think that we'll always be in the number one position. We will not, because financially, we're not. They're in a better position than we are right now today. The United States of America, that C country, way better position than we are. And Donald Trump, what he continues to say is that he's going to fight to kind of fix the situation between us and them. And even if you did not vote for Donald Trump, even if you are completely anti-MAGA and you hate his presence, you better hope he's able to fix that situation between now and 2028. Because if he gets out of office and the political left takes the administration back, I don't know if we'll be able to come back, because if he doesn't fix it in 4 years, and then we got 4 more years of a Democrat in office, depending on who it is. Right now, they say Kamala's number one. I doubt she wins, but let's say it's Mr. Newsom from California, or who else is there? There's Whitmer from Michigan. Who else is a possible candidate? Let's just say them, or Michelle Obama, or whoever. One of them takes the place in 2028. And so we're looking at 8 more years of the trajectory we're already on financially with regards to the sea country. We're going to be in bad shape. Bad shape. So again, all of you you don't like Trump, you better hope he fixes this one. Moving on. Y'all can go read about that. Y'all can go read more about that somewhere else. Next. Shapiro. Yeah. Shapiro from Pennsylvania, who I think Kamala should have picked, but I know she didn't because of for political reasons, but she should have picked him. She probably would have won. Maybe. Number 7. We're talking here today about why MAGA is actually great for America. How many points I got here? I got 10 total. So number 7. Number 7 is protection of free speech and individual liberties. Now, do you not have free speech when Joe Biden was president? I mean, you have free speech generally. However, we all remember what happened during 2020 with the virus, right? I don't know if all of you know, but do you know the areas where the restrictions, such as leaving your house and wearing a mask on your face and the mandates for the jabs, you know, the areas of America where those went away first? A lot of people don't notice. Some of you may know because you were in one of those areas. Many of you are in one of those areas, but you may not know what those areas are. The areas were the red areas. The areas where the bans disappeared the quickest, the soonest, were in the red areas. Now, some people may say, well, why? Why did the bans go away in the red areas first? And red meaning the areas where the population is most heavily vote Republican. Why did the bans go away first in those areas? Because those people in those areas are Second Amendment followers. They are raised, the water just splashed in my face. They are raised to be Second Amendment followers. Now, what does that have to do with the bans? It has a lot to do with the bans because you can't enforce a ban. You can't enforce people putting a mask on their face. You can't enforce people having to get a jab if they got something to defend themselves with and they say, I'm not doing it. What you going to do? And there are not enough cops to fight back against a whole community of people who says we're all on the same page and we're not doing this. Whereas in the blue areas, people tended to, and I've tended to live in a lot of blue areas. Miami actually vacillates. Miami's actually purple. Sometimes it's red, sometimes it's blue. But I tend to live in blue areas, and in blue areas, people tend to want to do whatever the government tells them to do. Whereas in red areas, I don't live in generally super red areas, but I know a lot of people who do, and I work with a lot of people from middle America, and they tend to be attracted to my message for whatever reason. In those areas, they don't get dictated to by the government. It just doesn't happen. Those of you who live in red areas know exactly what I mean. Please co-sign this in the comments. In red areas, the government does not tell you what to do. You tell them what you're going to do, and they get out of your way. In the blue areas, people tend to celebrate the government telling us what to do. In Philadelphia, where I'm from, you look at a DC, you look at a New York, you look at some of the heavily dense areas of places like Miami, people tend to celebrate the government dictating things. Not in the red areas. It doesn't happen that way. It's, excuse me, officer, this is private property. And holding a weapon right there so they can see it. This is private property, officer. How can I help you? That's how it goes. And how do I know this? I told you, I know a lot of people in these areas. Even though I don't live there, I know that's how it goes. And in those areas, you don't need things like it's funny. I was just telling you all about how law enforcement officers, right? I'm happy when I see more and more cops in red areas, like heavily red areas, where it's like the areas where the Democrats don't even campaign because they know they won't get any votes. In those areas, they don't need cops. They don't say we need more cops. Why? Because everybody got a weapon. So everybody respects everybody because everybody knows the deal. You know he got one. You can't see it. You know he got it. You know she has it. You know he has it. Nobody gets out of line because we all know what's going to happen if you get out of line. See, in the blue areas, not as much. Not saying nobody, but not as much. It's just a different mindset in those different places. So I'm bringing all this up to talk about the free speeches of free speech and individual liberties. And First Amendment in the Constitution is what? The right to free speech, the right to say what you want to say, which was created because people wanted religious freedom in the United States of America when it was first formed. People want the ability to say whatever it is that they want to say and not be held liable for it in any way. I don't know if you all know this, but do you know that in the G country, I don't know what countries' names I can say on here, so I'm not going to risk it because looks like TikTok got me on the For You page here today, so I'm not going to risk my good fortune by saying the wrong thing because TikTok has some crazy restrictions on certain terms, and you never know when you're violating one until they tell you. So the G country, it was just like 2 weeks ago, they were arresting people for, do you know what they're arresting people for? Because they said the wrong thing on social media. This person spread some misinformation on social media, or they did, I believe it was racist. The person said something racist on social media in the G country, and they went and hunted the person down, found out where they live, sent the police to that person's home, and arrested them because of what they said on social media. All right, that is the exact antithesis of the First Amendment. Now, again, is another country, not America. They don't have the same constitution that we have. But the point is, as that becomes more normal, the fact that people in the G country, I don't know what the response to it was. I don't pay that much attention to geopolitics, but the response to that should have been complete outrage. That should have been like pandemonium in the streets. Even if, again, let's just say when Biden was president, right? They did that. Let's say they went and arrested somebody who's a Trump supporter because of something that they said on social media. They said F Biden and F Harris and whatever they said, right? And they called Harris the N-word, whatever. And then the Biden administration sent cops to that person's house and arrested them. Even if you are a Biden supporter and you dislike Trump, you should be out in the streets protesting that one. Because the right to free speech is bigger than your political preference. And I don't think that would happen. That's the issue. I don't think that if the Biden administration had arrested somebody for being against them who was a Trump supporter, I don't think a lot of Biden supporters would have come out in defense of the Trump supporter because they're more into their emotions about Biden versus Trump than they are about protecting the First Amendment, regardless of who the president is. And that's the reason why this is a precarious issue in the United States of America, because if it's starting to happen in other Western societies and it's being tolerated, then it could possibly happen here. Now, is it going to happen under Trump? Hell no. But again, he only gets 4 years. Who's coming after him? Imagine if Harris actually comes back. Imagine she actually wins in 2028. Do you think this is not possible? Do you think if Newsom wins, it's not possible? If people have something to say about him, or people have something to say about Shapiro or Whitmer or whoever wins, if it's a Democrat, you think it's not possible? It's possible. And the point is, no matter what political party you support, we all have to support First Amendment rights. And those of you who are MAGA supporters, Trump supporters who are listening to this, even if you disagree with people who are against Trump, which I understand why you would, at the same time, you should respect their right to say what they want to say, even if you staunchly disagree with what they said. That's what the First Amendment is about. I don't have to agree with everything that you say. I'm sure there are people in the comments right now not agreeing with the things that I'm saying, but you need to respect my right to say it, because in America, we all have the right to say what we want to say. You don't have to agree with it. You could even call it misinformation, disinformation. What's the other one? Hate speech, all these things. All right. None of these things are manufactured terms. All right. If I decide that I don't like you because of the color of your skin, because of the religion that you practice, or because you're a male or a female, or what you choose to do in the bedroom, I have a right to that. I have a right to not like you because of that. And if I want to say it out loud, I should have a right to do so. Now, on certain platforms, you can't, and they'll ding you. Like, again, TikTok, as an example, they have hit me a couple times for quote unquote HATE SPEECH. I got to be careful not to say these. Again, you never know what you can say on these platforms. But in the wider world of just general America, I can say whatever I want to say. Why? Because the First Amendment protects my right to say what I want. And if you want to call it misinformation, you call it whatever you want to. There's no such thing as misinformation. Is somebody's either knows what they're talking about or they don't. They're telling you the truth or they're lying. If they don't know what they're talking about, they're just ignorant. Ignorant simply means not to know something. If you don't know, you don't know. People talk about things they don't know all the time. Now, y'all use social media, right? Don't people get on social media and talk about stuff they don't know what they're talking about? Some of you listening to me right now think I don't know what I'm talking about. But guess what? I got the right to say it, even if you don't believe it, even if you don't agree. Even if you think I'm a complete fool, I have a right to say what I want to say. And you have a right to tell me that I'm a fool. Free speech. Now, it doesn't mean I have to let you keep talking. I can get rid of you if I want to. You could leave this live if you want to. But we both have the right to say what we want to say and feel how we want to feel and express it verbally if we so choose. That's how it works in America. If I'm in the mall, somebody walks up to me and says, Dre, I saw your live stream on TikTok this morning and you're a complete idiot, dummy, asshole, and you should never be on live stream ever again in life. They have the right to say that. Now, I have a right to respond, but if I was to punch this person in the face and the cops come, who's getting arrested, me or him? Me, because I'm the one who committed the violence. I can't say, well, he incited violence because he said what he said to me. That's not a real thing. Again, it sounded good when they use it against Trump. That's not a real thing. I mean, technically it is. I mean, you got the whole fire in a crowded theater thing, the Supreme Court ruling. But in general, just because somebody says something, that's not a crime. That's not a punishable offense. I can say pretty much whatever I want to say. If you respond physically in a way that is against the law, you are liable and responsible for that. So all of you, again, regardless of what side you are on, you should always protect the free speech of other people, even the people who you disagree with. Because if all of society is just a bunch of people all agreeing to the same thing, well, it's only a matter of time. Actually, it'd be a lot shorter timeline before AI completely takes over all of us. If we all believe the same thing, what we need us for? If we all believe the same thing, there's an engineer in Silicon Valley somewhere right now that could easily replace all of us if that's all it takes. If we all got the same opinions. We need to have different opinions. We need diversity of thought, diversity of opinion, diversity of perspective. And again, this is the most important thing. I'm going to say it for the 5th time here. You must defend someone's right to have a completely different opinion from you, even if you really don't like what they're saying. That's what the First Amendment is about. Forget about your political agenda or who you serve or who you support. It has nothing to do with that. It's bigger than that. Everybody deserves the right to say what they want to say. If they start pulling people away because they are racist, or they use HATE speech, or they were misinforming or disinforming, or they're going against something. Let's say you want to take the jab and you took all the jabs. You took like 8 jabs. You took the main jab, it was 2 of them, and you got all the boosters, still got the virus anyway. And then somebody comes out there and they're talking bad about dummies like you who went and took all the shots. Again, I'm using this as a metaphor, as an example, I'm not calling you a dummy. And you are happy that they went and got arrested for that. No, you shouldn't be happy for that, because people should have the right to say that it's bad to take the shot. Why? Because if everybody agrees that everybody has to take the shot, and anyone who goes against taking the shot gets arrested, well, it was only a matter of time before the government tells you had to take a shot that you don't want to take. But guess what? You supported someone else not wanting to take it, getting arrested. So guess what? You can't say anything because you showed the government that it's okay. That was the problem during 2020, during the virus, that there were people out there who wanted to take all the shots, and you took all the shots. Fine, if that's what you wanted to do. I took 0 shots. Why? Because I said I'm healthy, and if I get the virus, I think I got it. I don't know, because I never took a test. I got something. I don't know what it was. Was it the flu? Was it the cold? I don't know. If I get the virus, I'll be all right. I'll survive. And here I am. All right, that was in 2021. Here I am, still alive, breathing. Do I look healthy? All right, I have it. I think I got it. I don't know what it was. The point being that if you went and got all the shots, and you have a problem with anybody getting none of the shots and announcing that they got none of the shots, and you think they should be shut up, silenced, harassed, bullied, kicked out of their job, fired, otherwise suppressed because they didn't want to get the shot. Again, it's only a matter of time. The government sees that and says, oh, well, everybody's okay with us forcing the shot, and they're okay with us punishing the people who don't want to get the shot. Then let's make them get more shots. Now, you don't know how big pharma works. Let's make them get more shots. Do you know how they make their money? Let's make them get more shots. Everybody wins, not you, but they win if that's the situation. So again, those of you who are against a certain thing, do not get excited or happy or applaud when the people who think the opposite of you face what looks like the prospect of some type of punishment for doing that, whether it's getting fired from their jobs, kicked off a social media platform. This is not okay. And this is one of the biggest issues I had with 2021, January 6th. When that happened in 2021, there were a bunch of people who don't like Donald Trump, and it had been announced at that point that Biden was the winner, right? It had been announced that Biden was the winner. Donald Trump kept claiming that it was stolen from him, and he galvanized these people to come to DC to support him on January 6th, 2021. Even if you disagree with Trump and you disagree with what he did on January 6th, 2021, you need to understand the essence of what he was doing. He was saying, I don't think this went the right way. I don't think it was done fairly. That's what he believed. Whether you agree with him or not is irrelevant. I don't think this was done fairly. I'm letting my supporters come and support me. That does not mean that the people who trespassed and committed violence on January 6th are wrong. I mean, all right. That doesn't mean that they're justified. You shouldn't have did that. But there was a lot more people there who didn't do anything wrong than there were people who did do something wrong. In case any of you didn't know that. There were hundreds of thousands of people, 6 figures worth of people, in not 6 figures in money, 6 figures in numbers worth of people who came to DC to support Trump that day. About 1,500 got charged. All right, so do the math. There's a very small percentage of people, less than 2% of people who were there in DC actually got charged with anything. And they found everybody. So all of you need to understand that even if you don't like Trump and you were happy that Biden was declared the winner, you should not have been in support of Donald Trump getting kicked off all the social media platforms. So now he doesn't have a voice and can't say anything, at least temporarily. That's not okay. You shouldn't have supported the exorbitant sentences given to the people who got rounded up and charged. You shouldn't have supported that. Why? Because it's a signal to the government that, okay, we can take anything that we disagree with, the government that is, that we disagree with, and we got the people's support to do this to them. What happened to the people on January 6th? The government was looking to see the response of the people. Is it okay if we do this to people who go against what we're doing? And they were looking to see how people felt about it. And this is the reason why, again, I shudder to think what would have happened to this country had Harris won in 2024. Donald Trump winning on November 5th, 2024 was a clear signal to the government that people in general are not okay with what was done to Trump and to his supporters on January 6th, 2021. Because if they were, there's no way he would have won that election. He wouldn't even come close. The 2024 election. Donald Trump winning in 2024 was a loud and clear signal that U.S. government, you cannot do this to the people that you don't like and the people who disagree with you. That's what it was a signal to do. And I'm saying the government in general, not just Democrats, not just the government in general, because there's a whole lot of Republicans who supported what happened to Donald Trump in 2021 and moving forward. A lot of Republicans against Donald Trump, even still to this day. And his election, his re-election was a signal to the country and the government. This is not okay. This is not acceptable. And again, this is the reason why MAGA is MAGA. This is the reason why America First matters the way that it does. And this message, what I just said there, some of you already believe this and already agree with it. That really was to the people on the political left, just in case any of you didn't catch it. All right. So Donald Trump's political opposition, it appears, and this is a problem, they would rather silence any voice that goes up against them than allow it to speak and see what it has to say. Here's what I say about this whole concept of misinformation is that you should let it spread as far and as wide as it wants to. If you believe someone is completely misinformed, they don't know what they're talking about, they're a complete fool, you should not want them to be silenced. You should want them to talk as much as possible. Why is this? Because if someone is completely misinformed and their point is stupid and makes no sense, the more they talk, the more clearly they will be exposed. And it'll be very obvious that they got exposed, and they will be embarrassed into silence. But see, if someone starts talking about something that is controversial, quote unquote, and then they get blocked from talking, well, that may lead them to believe, well, you know what? That is proof that I know what I'm talking about because you had to block me. Or because they weren't allowed to have their message spread and get response from the public, that may cause them to believe, okay, well, it must mean I'm talking about the right thing. And it may make people who were curious. This is what happened. I'll tell you, this was what happened with me with Mr. AT. You know that the bald-headed guy who's a kickboxer who's allegedly in the United States right now. The only thing that got me interested in the guy was when they kicked him off of social media and said it was for misogyny. I said, who the hell gets kicked off of social media for misogyny? Only person got kicked off of social media by all the platforms on the same day was Donald Trump for allegedly inciting violence against the government. All right, that's a huge charge they're putting on him. Now they're going to kick him off for misogyny? That doesn't make sense. Misogyny? Who gets kicked off the internet for misogyny? It was just completely ridiculous. As soon as they said that, I said, let me go see what this guy's actually talking about. So see, kicking him off didn't make me not want to listen to him, made me want to listen to him more. And this is the problem with censorship. When you censor something, all you do is cue curious people, critical thinkers, people like myself and many of you, to go actually listen even more to what they're trying to stop you from listening to. This is why you can't do that. You tell somebody not to do something, out of sheer perversity, they're going to want to do it because they want to know what you're trying to keep away from them. This is just how human nature works. So this whole concept of telling people what they can't do and what they have to believe and what they can't say, all it does is cause people to actually do the exact opposite of what you're trying to get them to do. And again, the political left has painted themselves into the corner of being on this side. This is terrible strategy. They need to fix this. They should be working on it right now. I think they're done licking their wounds from 2024. They know the mistakes that they made. Hopefully, I think they have some smart people over there. I think they understand the mistakes that they made. And they're going to remedy this, because if they don't remedy this, they will not win in 2028. They won't have a chance because America has spoken to them clearly. So either they're listening or they're not. Number 8, the defense of the Second Amendment. We talked about this already. We're talking about MAGA is great for America. And after I get through these points, I think I'm going to take a bathroom break. Then I'll get to the questions if y'all don't mind. We're going to make sure we get this bathroom break thing right this time around. I've been trying to get it right. We've done it twice. And we're going to make sure we get it right this time. We'll see. Number 8, defense of the Second Amendment. All right, the First Amendment is your right to speak freely. The next amendment is your right to use the arms that you bear if necessary. Now, of course, within the confines of the law, but you have a right to have the arms. And a lot of people don't understand why the Second Amendment exists. The Second Amendment exists to protect citizens against a possibly tyrannical government. That's why the Second Amendment exists. It's not about me versus you. It's not about neighbor versus neighbor. It's about us keeping the government in check. That's why the Second Amendment exists, in case any of you didn't know. And the reason why all of you should be supporters of the Second Amendment is because the government works for you. You do not work for the government. You do not serve the government. The government serves you. And this is, again, one of the reasons why when I'm going to do a whole presentation just like this one on why people don't trust the government. This is one of the reasons that the government has positioned itself. And when I say the government, I mean the politicians who you hear talking every day. They have positioned themselves as if we serve them. We don't serve them. They serve us. They work for us. And the way politicians talk is as if you need to go along with what they're saying. They try to frame it as if they're serving the people. They're really not. They're serving themselves because it's designed for them to serve themselves because they have incentives to serve themselves. Again, it's a career. What happens to, again, name any politician you know who hasn't done anything other than be a politician. What happens to AOC if she loses her position in politics? What is her fallback? What's her plan B? What other professional skill does she have where she can match her salary? Where she can make, let's just say, where can she make six figures besides what she's doing right now? I don't think there's an answer to the question. There isn't one. She can make six figures probably leveraging her name because we know who she is now. But if you took everything from politics away, what else does she have to fall back on professionally? There's nothing. And I'm using her as an example because all you know who she is. But you can fill in the names of a bunch of other politicians as well. They all fit the same description. And they're in a position where they talk as if we work for them. We don't. And the reason why the Second Amendment exists is so that we keep them in check. Because if they ever get way too out of line, then what happened on January 6th, that can happen everywhere. That's the point of January 6th. And again, why, even if you disagree with Trump, this is the reason why I understand the people who did what they did on January 6th, even those who were charged. I understand why they did it. Why? Because they were sending a loud and clear signal to the government and to the lawmakers in Congress that, hey, if you keep violating our desires, we're going to come to your front door, literally to your front door. And the way that it's been framed, what happened, and I did a whole live on January 6th, by the way. So those of you who didn't catch that, I literally did it on January 6th, 2025. It's on my YouTube channel. And the way that it was framed is if these people are like crazy, insurrectionists and all these things. And yes, if you trespass and you know you're trespassing, then you know you're committing a crime. You know something's going to happen. All right. We know they knew something was going to happen. They did it anyway. All right, fine. All right, do what you want to do. You know, sometimes there's a penalty for what you do. They did it. They knew something was going to happen. Something happened. But to frame it as if these people are like the lowest levels of citizens and they're not really, American or not patriotic because of what they did, I completely disagree with that. I completely disagree because they're Americans exercising their right to free speech and their right to make their voices heard. And they felt like, again, you can say that they went overboard at this point, and legally they did because they got charged. But they felt like using their free speech wasn't quite enough, so they had to make their voice heard in another way. And even though I understand what they did and I understand they had to get charged, would I have done that if I was in D.C. January 6, 2021? I would not have breached the trespassing border. I probably wouldn't have done that. But I understand the people who did. And at the same time, just as a man, period, and as an American, there are times when doing things above board and by the book and, following the right process, most of the time, 98% of the time, you can get your point across that way. But there's that 2% of the time. I gave you all this example earlier that if I'm somewhere and there are no law enforcement officers and there's a knucklehead acting like they don't have any sense, I might have to step out of my frame and get the point across to them in a way that they otherwise couldn't understand. And as a man, every man should understand that. And every man should have the capability of doing so. And in that sense, I understand the January 6ers. I don't even want to use the word support because people use that term in a tricky way. It's a slimy word. And they use it as a manipulative term. I will say I understand them. I understand why they did what they did. I do not condemn them. I understand them. And I believe them doing that they sacrificed their freedom and their time, whatever amount of time they spent in court and incarcerated, as a service to every citizen listening to this right now. Even if you're not a Trump supporter, that was a service to you. Why? Because it was a loud and clear message to Congress that y'all ain't going to just do what you want to do. If you keep doing what you want to do and don't listen to us, we come and knock on your door. Literally knock on your door. All of you should be happy that January 6th happened, even if you didn't have to put in the work. Because there may come a time in America, folks, again, I just told you, we may not stay the number one power. May come a time you got to put in the work. Now, again, look around at what happens in other countries when they really get tired of the government. You see what they do. Any of you from another country? Name a country where you know what I'm talking about. Name that country, even if you're not from there. When the citizens really get tired of the government and they really get fed up and they really feel like they're not being heard, do y'all know what happens? All right. And what happens is the government has to respond by calling in the military to kind of put the people down. The problem is they can't do that in America because there's too many people and too many firearms. They can't do that in America, what they do in other countries. In other countries, if I'm running the country and people really don't like me and they don't like what I'm doing, they feel like they're not listening, they can come against me. And I can make a phone call to the military and I can get the military to calm everybody down, calm you down one way or another, because y'all don't have enough weapons to fight my military. But in America, there's enough people with enough weapons that the military ain't big enough. You understand? And there's a bunch of people in the military who ain't going to take up the call. They ain't going to take the call. Like, no, I'm not doing that. Sorry, Mr. President, I'm not doing that because they feel the same way that you feel. That's the reason why the Second Amendment exists. So any of you have a problem with the Second Amendment, consider what I just told you. Moving on. Point number 9, fighting wokeism and political correctness. So woke is a word that has been weaponized. I believe rightfully so. What does woke mean? Because a lot of times people say woke, they say, oh, what does woke mean? Woke means being, hypersensitive to injustices in society, specifically around things like race and gender. That's the definition of the word woke if you look it up. And if this is your first time listening to me, I am far from politically correct, in case you couldn't tell. I'm actually being somewhat PC while I'm talking here because there are certain things you can't say on this particular platform. I'm looking at the camera right now. This particular platform, certain things you can't say. And I've been kicked off this platform like 7 times in the last 6 months because I said something that I wasn't supposed to say. And a lot of times don't even know what I said. So one of the main drivers for me becoming and remaining an entrepreneur is I have the complete freedom to say what I want to say. And nobody can tell me what I can say and what I can't say. Well, one of these platforms can, but I can still say it, just not on their platform. And I'm also not a fan of being woke. Again, being highly sensitive to inequalities. I believe life is designed to be, they're designed to be inequality. Inequalities are a feature of the system, not a bug of the system. So those of you who don't know what that language means, a bug means something that has to be fixed. A feature means this is what it's supposed to be. Inequalities are a feature. Everybody's not the same height. We don't all have the same weight. We aren't born into the same type of families. We don't have the same situations. We don't have the same skills. We don't have the same talents. Inequalities are part of the fabric of humanity. We're not all the same. If everybody was the same, again, artificial intelligence will replace us in 24 hours and we were all the same. The reason why artificial intelligence has not overtaken society already in 2024 is because we are so different and so unique that they can't create a computer chip that replaces all of us because there are 330 million different types of people. If we were all exactly the same, there would be we'd be the Jetsons. I remember the Jetsons. You had George Jetson, Jane, his wife, Elroy, Judy, and you had the mechanical maid. We'd be the Jetsons if we were all the same. And hopefully one of you gets to be one of the 4 humans around. Everybody else would just be computers. So we want there to be inequality. We want there to be differences. We want there to be people who are having to climb uphill and some people who get to run downhill. The opportunity for all of you, and this is more on the personal development side, professional development side, which is really the essence of what I do professionally, is not to complain about the inequalities that are working against you. Is to identify where inequalities work in your favor. And that's where you need to plant your flag. Do y'all understand that? For example, I'm 6 feet 4 inches tall. I have long arms and long legs. My body is made for things like running and jumping. So if I was to go try to do something like MMA or wrestling, I would have inequalities working against me. Why? Because my body is not made for grappling. That's not what my body is made for. It's not the best use of my physical abilities. Best use of my physical abilities would be something like running or tennis or basketball, which is a sport that I played. Why? Because those sports are all about range and covering distance with speed and agility. So the inequality worked in my favor in basketball, but it will work against me if I try to go be a wrestler. So you just got to find the place. And I'm using that as a metaphor for all of you. You got to go find a place in life where your natural attributes and skills and talents serve you rather than work against you. And don't stay in a place where they're working against you and complain about it and then say, well, hey, the government or somebody needs to create a policy to make this situation better for me. No, you're in the wrong position. And the 12 work on your game commandments, my company is called Work on Your Game. So we have these principles that we stand on, and I call it the 12 work on your game commandments. There's actually 13 of them, but one of them is the proper vehicle, which is also known as placement strategy. In marketing world, they call it placement strategy. What does that mean? The proper vehicle means you need to be in the right place with your skills, same person, same everything. You need to put them in the right place to where you can get the highest level of ROI, which stands for return on investment, from what you're doing. To give you a simple example of this, all you remember the George Foreman grill? Well, it still exists, right? Remember the Foreman grill? Everybody had a Foreman grill like, what, 10, 15 years ago? Some of you still got them, right? So the George Foreman grill, for those of you who don't know, the Foreman grill was not always called the Foreman grill. It had another name, but it didn't have George Foreman's name attached to it. They used to sell it in stores like Kmart. I remember Kmart and Sears and Target, what we now have as Target and those kind of stores. They used to sell it there, but it was kind of just collecting dust on the shelf because there was a bunch of all those little grills being sold, and that one wasn't really taking off. So the people who owned the grill said, we need to do something to kind of boost the sales of this. So they decided, let's get a celebrity endorser. So they went and got George Foreman. They put his name on it, and they, instead of calling it whatever they were calling it, they called it the George Foreman Lean Mean Grilling Cooking Machine, whatever they called it. And here's what they did. That was one thing that they did to change the placement of the product. They put a name on it that everybody recognized. Number two, instead of selling it in like the Kmarts and the Sears and the Targets of the world, you know what else they did? They put it on QVC. They put it on the Home Shopping Network, and they started selling it on those live infomercials. And it costs a lot of money to get on those, and then you got to actually sell. If you're not selling, they'll kick you off the show. A lot of y'all don't know that. If you ever see one of those infomercials where somebody's selling something right there on TV, like what's all the things they sold? What was that sponge called? I forget the name of that sponge. Remember that sponge the guy had? And then you had the mops and all these things they sell on TV. You think is ridiculous, but the only reason they stay on TV because they're actually selling. Tony Robbins actually got his start selling on infomercials. As a matter of fact, he was very good. And you ever seen Tony Robbins talk, you can understand why he sells very well on TV. So anyway, they started selling the Foreman grill on QVC and the Home Shopping Network and things like that. And that's when it took off. All they did, it was the exact same product. They did not change the grill. They didn't make the grill better. They didn't make the grill cook burgers any faster, nothing. All they did was put George Foreman's name on it, and they changed where and how they were selling it. And all of a sudden, George Foreman grill was like the best-selling grill in the world. That's placement strategy. I'm telling you all that to help you all understand this. You need to do the same thing with yourself. If where you're currently delivering, if you believe you have skills. Now, some of you, you're not getting results because you're just not good. Now, if you're not good, then you just need to work on your game. Now, you see that book right there behind me? It's called Work on Your Game. You need to work on your game if you're not good. Now, if you are good and you know you have skills and you know you have ability, yet you are not getting the ROI that you desire, then your issue is not skill. You don't need to work harder. Your issue is placement strategy. You're in the wrong vehicle. You need to get in the right vehicle. You get in the right vehicle, things will start working. It's kind of like you're trying to go from Miami to LA. Technically, you could walk. I mean, it will take you a long time, but you could if you want to. But if you need to get there quickly, maybe getting on a bicycle will get you there a little bit faster. Now, a bicycle will go faster. Maybe a motorcycle will get you there. Maybe a car. But the fastest way is get on a damn plane. Go to the airport, get an American Airlines flight from LA to Miami. I mean, from Miami to LA, you'll be there in 5 hours. The right vehicle. Again, walking, you could get there, but you get there a lot faster if you take the plane. And some of you are in a position where you're trying to walk to your desired outcome when you actually just need to get on the plane. That requires a change in thinking, not really a change in skill set. Often too many people focus on their ability. Let me go get better at the game. That's not your problem. Problem is your game is great. You're just using your game in the wrong place and you're giving it to the wrong people. Before I played basketball, I was playing baseball. I was mediocre at baseball, but it wasn't the right vehicle. I got in the right vehicle, things started working. All right, so this whole concept of wokeism, of focusing on the inequalities in society, is a losing proposition because there will always be inequalities in society. This is why we have the race hustlers. The race hustlers are people who take the inequalities that exist, they make a big deal out of it, and then they charge people money to preach to them about why they need to do something different. It's a hustle because they're making money off it, but it's a failing strategy because they'll never solve the problem. That's why it's a hustle, because the problem will never be solved. Therefore, they can keep making money off of it forever as long as people keep buying into the bullshit. This is the reason why race hustling is race hustling. This is the reason why Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson have been in business for 40 years. because all they do is just repackage the same complaint over and over again, just find different ways to talk about it. Y'all notice that? That's their game. That's their hustle. And it's the reason why I don't like their work, and I don't like their disciples, their spawn who have come from them, because that's all they do. And they condition Black people to believe that if you just complain enough about your situation, then somebody's supposed to do something about it. I am staunchly against this on a fundamental level. I just explained to you what I'm about, that if you find yourself not achieving, either A, you have no game, or B, you're applying your skills in the wrong place. It's one or the other. So maybe you're just a bum. That's why things aren't working for you. That's why there are inequalities. You're just not good. When I first started playing basketball, I wasn't good. I had to accept the fact that I wasn't good, not complain about it, accept it, work on my game, and that's when things started working. Period. Last point, number 10, and then we'll take questions after this. So we're talking about why MAGA is great, and making sure my schedule is clear. All right, we'll be able to go a little bit longer here today. I'm going to take your questions. Why MAGA is great for America. Number 10, promoting American values and patriotism. This is the biggest issue with immigration. I did a whole series on this, how America messes up with immigration. Is that other countries in the world, you cannot just bring a whole bunch of people who are not from there into the country and just let them come in and just do what they want to do. You go to another country, any other country in the world, and you want to, let's say you're an American, you want to go to another country and live. First of all, you got to go through all the paperwork. America has paperwork too. Secondly, they might just say no. See, America ain't saying no to anybody. That's the issue. And all of you understand the easiest and the hardest word to say is no. Only got 2 letters, only takes a second to say it. If you are unwilling to say no to anything, and you say yes to everything, well, eventually, whatever you are or whatever your entity is will cease to be an entity, because you're accepting anything and everything. You accept anything and everything, that means you are not enforcing standards and rules. And if you don't enforce standards, rules, and parameters, by the law of entropy, by definition, you have no choice but to get chaos and disorder. That's what started to happen in America, and Donald Trump touched on that. It's the reason why he got so much support. We must enforce our laws, our standards, and our parameters when it comes to who can come into this country. Because we were not enforcing it for so long, we were starting to get chaos. And all he did was highlight the examples of chaos, and it was enough to get people's attention. And it's not like he was lying. He was just using it and sensationalizing it and selling it and talking it up to win the election, and it worked. We all know that. American values and patriotism is about, we have standards here. Other countries do the same thing. Again, you can't go to another country and just move in as an American citizen and they just let you do what you want. You go into another country, even if you go through all the paperwork, if you start violating in that country and not doing what you're supposed to do, they will kick you right back out as just easily as they brought you in. And they don't have to let you in. They have not positioned themselves the way America has. And I understand why America has done this. America has positioned itself as this melting pot, and we're open to everybody, and you can come here, and we're a sanctuary country that if you are facing some type of issue over there, you can come here with political asylum from wherever else in the world, and everybody can come here to the United States of America. It's a melting pot, and we got so many people from so many different places. It's a very diverse society. All those things are true. At the same time, we can't just let anybody and everybody come in here, because then we cease to be the entity no longer exists. If you just let anything and everything come in, it's no longer what it was. That's the issue. If you have a glass of milk and you start pouring water into the glass of milk, before you know it, it's no longer milk and it's not water. What is it? We don't know. What's the word for water and milk mixed together? I don't know what you call that. Maybe some people call it skim milk, but it ain't milk and it ain't water. So the other countries, again, if you want to come into another country, yes, you can come in, but here's the way things go here. Here's the way you have to assimilate. Here's what you have to do. Here's what you cannot do. Here's what you can say. Here's what you can't say. And if you violate anything on this list, we will throw you out just as easily as we brought you in. That's the way it works. All right, these are our terms. Yes or no, sir. And that's how it goes. In America, we're not doing that. We used to. We used to do that. And again, Donald Trump did not create any new laws when it came to immigration. All he's doing is enforcing the ones we got. So any of you have an issue with what he's doing or saying regarding immigration, again, the laws already existed. All he's doing is saying enforce them. That's all he's doing, in case any of you didn't understand that. So American values and patriotism, these start to erode when we are bringing so many people in to the point that we don't even know what it means anymore. When someone says American values and patriotism, what does that even mean? Well, we're starting to lose the essence of what that means, because we're bringing in so many outsiders who don't care what that means. They are not told what it means, nor are they held to a standard of even knowing what it means. That before you know it, you have this water and milk mixture that's not water and is not milk. And people are getting pissed off about that. And they have a right to be. There are Americans who've been here going back many generations. They are pissed off about the fact that what is this country anymore? This country is going to shit because we're just allowing anything and everything. I believe that line of reasoning began in 2008 when Obama won. I'm not saying he's the reason for it, but did it trigger people to start thinking that way? Absolutely it did. And Donald Trump came in as the polar opposite of Obama. Obama was about the world, global citizen, let everybody in, everything's for everybody. Donald Trump came in and said, no, we narrowing everything down back to this. It was the perfect counterpunch to what Obama provided. And one of the reasons why he won. Had that been George W. Bush, then Trump came in, he might not have won because they were not enough contrast. Obama was a perfect contrasting point for Donald Trump to position himself against. Again, what I just tell you, placement strategy, the right vehicle. Donald Trump picked the right time and the right placement and he had the right thing to go against. And Hillary worked in the Obama administration, so it was perfect for him. All right, so all of this, folks, the MAGA movement is pushing back against all of these things that seem to be going against what many of us were raised or taught to believe America was about. And he's attempting to bring those principles back. And again, even if you are not a fan of Trump, how could you be against that if you're an American? If you're an American, then it should be clear what does America actually mean? What are our standards? What are our principles? What are our rules? What are our parameters? And if somebody wants to come into our space, they got to follow the rules. You don't just walk into somebody else's space and do what you want to do. Can you go to somebody else's house and they say, take your shoes off and you say, no, you just walk in and put your feet on the table? No, you can't do that. They will kick you out of the house. You might get beat up in the process of doing that. So how are we allowing people to do it in America? It's not acceptable. And again, whether you like Donald Trump or you don't like him, what's your argument against that point? Now, I don't believe there is one, but maybe there is. We're going to get to that in 1 second. Now, here's what I'm going to do, folks. So I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. We tried this before. We're going to do it again. I need to go to the restroom. This is going to take like 2 minutes. My restroom is right next to my office. I'm going to close this office door. I'm going to close the bathroom door. So hopefully you don't hear this. I'm going to go to the restroom. Okay, I'm going to be right back. It's going to take 2 minutes, and then we're going to answer all questions and comments. Everybody got that? I'll be right back. Give me 2 minutes. I'll be right back. I got to go to the restroom because I've been talking for 2 hours. Everybody hold on. I can't play music because they're going to copyright it. All right, I'm back. All right, thank you for your patience, those of you who stuck around. I saw somebody leave a comment that said play some music. For most of these apps, I could do that, but I can't play music with YouTube because YouTube will copyright strike you if you play music. Actually, they won't copyright strike you, but they will. They'll put a notification on your stream, and then they'll like demonetize your whole stream because you use copyrighted music. So I can't play music for that reason. I would have to play some what they call it, like royalty-free music. 2 minutes. Y'all can wait. 2 minutes of silence is good. Actually, you can use the mind clearing. So let's get to the comments here. I'm gonna start over on YouTube. There's a few over here, then we'll jump over to TikTok. Excuse me. Dilbert said you wanted OGs on the YouTube basketball scene. Yes, that is true. I agree. Your ball handling videos helped you out. That's what's up. Appreciate you, Delbert, over there on YouTube. Matt Villainy said the cost of living wasn't so high, people could work for less. Yeah, if the cost of living wasn't so high, we also wouldn't make as much money because the cost of living is high because somebody's making money when you pay the high cost of living. So Everything has a trade-off, folks. Michael, 100% appreciate you. Tanner says Chicago. What about Chicago? Chicago is in the middle of the country, big city, yes, but we know a lot of the big cities are in the on the perimeters. Tanner, I think that's what you're responding to. Michael said blue AF, but here in KS, don't go that way. Where's KS? Talking about Kansas? Kansas the state? Or where are you talking about, Michael? And then you said Illinois. So I don't know what place you're referring to here. Let me see what we got going on Rumble. Sometimes Rumble hiccups on me while I'm in the middle of my stream. All right, so it looks like, is Rumble working or is it not working? Sometimes Rumble gives me some mixed signals. All right, let me see what we got going on. I don't think I saw any comments on Instagram while I was talking. And yeah, I think it's time. Are we ready to jump over to Empress on Instagram? Says 77 million people voted for Trump, but I think we mostly work in the background. Well, most voters don't make themselves known no matter what side they vote for. KCB7, appreciate you over there on IG. TikTok, let's get it on. What you got on TikTok? So I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna start reading from as high as I can go in the scrolling. So again, I told you on TikTok, I cannot scroll all the way back to the beginning. First of all, it would take too long for me to scroll through everything. I'm just going as far as I can. Patri Monarchy Gypsy, whatever that says. I appreciate you. Lise, LIS, good morning to you. Carla, Indiana, good to see you. Keeping the government in check. Tyranny is not allowed. That's right. That's the point of the Second Amendment. Linda B, 2165 said, politicians have forgotten what their real job is. It seems like they have. Princess Living said, especially the Democrats, they want us to serve them. Yeah, I can understand that position. Pamela said bartender. Yes, that was AOC was doing. She's a bartender, right? Well, she was living in New York. No, I've heard actually some bartenders can make six figures a year working in New York. Depending on where in New York you're working. If you're any good, you should be able to make six figures. You bartend in New York, in the city. You bartend in Manhattan, you should make six figures. So maybe I was wrong on that point. Wanda said NATO, UN trying to start by backing. Yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, that's what Trump said to him in that meeting on, what was that, Friday? He said, look, we're about to start something else. And the issue for Mr. Z from over in the U country is that he's not the one who's going to have to foot the cost of these things happening. Because if he gets the USA on his side, he knows we're not going to let them get destroyed. But if we aren't on their side, they will get destroyed. Cashflow said, I think they were an example of a form of patriotism. Yes, I agree. Patramon Archie says, I wouldn't have either. Yeah, I wouldn't have gone in. I think you're talking about J6. I wouldn't have gone in, but I understand why they did. When talking isn't enough. Exactly. People who didn't breach even, a lot of them got approached. I know some people who were in DC on January 6th. They got visited by the three-letter organization. The people I know of, they didn't get arrested, but they were approached and told, hey, we just letting you know we know you were there. It's a kind of an intimidation tactic is what it was. Stacy D said, I have friends there, no violence from them, but in the building and both serve time. Yeah, that's crazy. Well, actually, let me back up. Stacy, it's technically not crazy if they weren't supposed to go in the building and they went in anyway. So hopefully they didn't have to serve too much. Hopefully it wasn't too much. But I understand why they did it. That's what I said. Princess said, exactly. We are still out here. I got you. Brandon Tessner, good to see you. Lisa Anna said, that's really interesting take. I love your lives. Thank you. Me too. Lee and Lisa, I don't know if I can say that thing. I know that's what Governor Walz claimed he was there, right? Then Governor Walz claimed he was at that place, TS, when it happened, but then he wasn't actually there. And then he said he misspoke. Dude, you can't misspeak about that. That's like me saying I was in Manhattan on 9/11. And then, oh, no, I wasn't actually in Manhattan. I was in Boston. Like, how can you misspeak that? That's not something you forget. I think he knew exactly what the hell he was doing. He got called out. A-Town LLC, interesting. So we run America. Technically, the citizens run America. Yes, that's why we have elections. So we vote for what we want, and then we let that person run it because we chose them, and then they do what we chose them to do. Now, the trust factor is, do they actually do what they said they were going to do? This is one thing that I can say positively about, I've said a bunch of things, but positively about Donald Trump is that he pretty much executes on what he said he was going to do. He ain't lying to you. He tells you what he's going to do, then he does it. Alex said he's working against your interests, but okay. Well, Alex, that's a false frame. You don't know what my interests are. So you're unqualified to make that statement. And someone came right behind me. Lisa came right behind and said exactly what I said. You can't tell someone that Trump is working against their interests unless you know what that person's interests are, which they must express. Thank you for helping me get the 40K and then 50K, Carla. Thank you, Carla. Lee said equal opportunity, not equal outcome. Yes, exactly. Well, depending on who you ask, some people say we should have equal outcomes. TVD film said being aware to injustice. Yes, exactly. The problem is, well, it's not even injustice and inequality. Injustice depends on what we're talking about, because people use that word in a very subjective way. That's the problem with injustice as a term. We said, figure we'd be flying by now. Deanne, remember, yes. Garden of Frenchie said, siding with the R country and NK country is not good for America. I don't feel like America is siding with anybody. I think America is under Donald Trump. Donald Trump's mandate from the beginning, or his claim from the beginning, is America is siding with America. And I'm with that. I'm with America siding with America and us getting out of being in other people's business, because we need to use our resources to be in other people's business. Those resources could be going to people who live here. So it's not necessarily we're siding with these other countries, because we can fight them. We don't need to be on their side. We don't want to be. If we want to fight the R country, we can fight. And we are capable of fighting them. We're capable of fighting the NK country. I'm not saying we should. I'm hoping it doesn't come to that. But we don't need to be their friend. The U country needs us to be their friend. Otherwise, they would not survive this current situation. They wouldn't be surviving right now if it wasn't for us. We don't need anybody for now. Again, don't get arrogant, Americans. Right now, we don't need any other country. The U country needs us. Otherwise, they disappear. That's just the reality of the situation. Let's see. Lisa said, I love artists. I'm an engineer and I am in love with their creativity. Okay, fair enough. Shout out to the artists out there. I like artists too. I like artists like music. Music is art. Yeah, I like artists. There's an artist who created this tie. So yes, I do like artists too. I don't think about it in that way, but I get what you're saying. Garden of Frenchie said, the U country does not want to be part of the R country. Yeah, well, right now they don't really have a say. Do they? They don't really have a say. The USA will help the U country or not help the U country, but the U country doesn't really have a say. And the leader of the U country, Mr. Z, is presenting himself as if he is calling the shots when he's really not. That's political theater. He has no power. The leadership coach said, I've owned several of those. What are you talking about? Princess Living said, rebranding is a major form in marketing. Yes, it's important at times. Lisa said, I had one. I love that. Oh, you're talking about the Foreman grill? Yes, the Foreman grill. And all you got the Foreman grill because they rebranded it, as Princess Living said. They rebranded it and they changed how they were selling it. That's why all of you got one. That's why I had one. ShamWow. Yes, that was it. Lisa, thank you. ShamWow. That was the name of that little sponge. They sold a lot of ShamWows. You know how many of those ShamWows they sold? A whole lot of them. Why? Because of where they were selling it and how they were selling it. If you just saw that in the stores, it was a sponge with a funny looking face. So who cares? But once they got on TV, and you got to have a good salesperson. That guy was a very good salesperson. As seen on TV. Yes, exactly. Someone said the lady sold her spin mop. Yes, I remember that. I remember the spin mop. My screen on YouTube, keeps flashing. I don't know what that means. Garden of Frenchie said, we never sided with the R. We don't have to side with anybody. That's the whole point. I mean, we've been in conflict with the R country in the past. So A-Town LLC said, what are some of the key elements in transition to walking and taking the airplane I'm in? Well, the first step, A-Town, is that you have to decide that walking is probably not the best way to do this. That's the first step. And the second step is asking yourself the question, if I had to do this faster, if I had to do it sooner, if I had to get it done now, how would I do it? How could I approach this in a different way? And or A-Town, who else has approached this in a different way to achieve the same outcome in a more effective and efficient way than what I'm currently doing? So you just have to ask yourself some open-ended questions that will challenge you to think. This is where insights come from. The good news about all of this, A-Town LLC, is that you don't have to figure it out on your own. You can go and talk to people who can help you figure these things out. This is the reason why the coaching and consulting industry exists, because this is what people in my line of work do. We help people figure out things that they otherwise would have taken a very long time to figure out on their own, or will never figure out on their own. So Garden of Frenchie said, there's nothing peaceful about the R country. So I mean, this is my thing with the way people talk about the R country. They say, well, VP and our country are the aggressor in the current situation. They say this country is not peaceful, or this country tried to take over, or the other country is on the defensive. My response to that is, so what? So what if they're the aggressor? Aggression is not a bad thing necessarily. Being the aggressor does not necessarily mean that you're wrong. Sometimes being the aggressor is necessary given the circumstance at hand. And Mr. VP, whether you agree with him or not, he believes that his country has a right to be the aggressor in this situation because of other things that have gone on leading up to their aggression. Again, doesn't necessarily make him right, but it doesn't make him wrong just because he's the aggressor. There are times in life where you need to be the aggressor. All right, you remember Daniel Penny on the train in New York? All right, was he technically the aggressor? Physically, he was the aggressor. Verbally, the other guy was the aggressor, but physically, he went first. And again, the law of the schoolyard, for those of you who don't know, is if there's another kid verbally threatening you, you don't wait for him to hit you, you hit him. So again, I'm using a metaphor here. Hopefully all you can understand, so I don't have to explain this in more detail. But if you think somebody's about to hit you, you hit them. That's the way it works. Brandon said, teach money. Well, what about it? That would be a whole lot unto itself. Lucky said, that's the exact same thing that Republicans do when they talk about taking your firearms. I don't know what you're referring to there, but, well, they don't want that to happen. That's the whole point. Flynn said, it's not great for people. I don't know what you're referring to there, Flynn. I need context. Gardner Frenchie said, the U country is a sovereign country and can want freedom from the R country regardless of U.S. promises. They can want whatever you can want things all day. Doesn't mean you're going to have it. I want a private plane, but next time I fly, it'll probably be commercial. So just because you want something doesn't mean anything. This says, still the left denied there was an invasion. Again, that doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter whether you want to call it an invasion, you want to call someone the aggressor, who cares? All that matters is what actually happened. What actually happened is that the R country has way more artillery than the U country. And the only reason the U country still exists is because the USA got involved, period. And the only way the U country will continue to exist is as long as the USA keeps helping them. The USA stops helping them, it's over for the U country. And they know it. And this is why it was ridiculous for Mr. Z to come to America and act like he has some power. He has no power. Tim Leary says standards should apply to him too, right? Moral standards are a good start. Well, the challenge, Tim, is that morals are extremely flexible. What I consider morals and what you consider morals do not have to be the same. So when you start judging things on a moral basis, you are stepping onto an extremely slippery slope. So I don't play the morality game personally. I get what you're saying, but I don't play the morality game because every person, it says 96 people on TikTok right now watching, each one of you can have a different set of morals. Who's right and who's wrong? And you don't have to agree. Piano, good morning, said, because the land of the free. That's right. Lee and Lisa, I know you weren't talking to me. Deanne, Biden and Harris, maybe. MNM said, my son moved to the A country 7 years ago, the A country down under, and there's still a lot of stipulations and not easy, but he loves it. Yeah, the A country, that down under country with the kangaroos. What I saw them doing during the virus was like, I said to myself, I could never live in that country after I saw that. That and the NZ country. What they were doing was kind of ridiculous, but I'm glad your son loves it regardless. Move Master said the Alamo was built in rural Mexico. What does that have to do with anything? Assuming that what you're saying is accurate, why does that matter? Princess Living, I agree that the democracy was in trouble with Biden and Harris, but they framed it expertly that the democracy was in trouble with Trump. But clearly that message didn't work. Patriot Lioness said Obama was the start of our diversity, his administration. What do you mean by that? I'm not sure that's true, but I want to understand what you mean. Princess said, Trump said 30 years ago he would become president if it got really bad. Yeah, I remember that. People always show that clip on social media. The 17701, good morning. Lisa said, that's what he pretends to be offering. He really offers corruption and white makes right. You talking about Trump? I mean, I understand that framing, that pejorative framing, Lisa, but you got to come with some kind of substantial reasons for why you're saying what you're saying. What you just said there, I know that flies on social media in most places, but not over here. Bring some substance. I'm willing to listen to why you are against him, but you got to come with something better than just pejoratives. All right, let's see. A-Town said, make sure he washed his hands. I did. And I closed both doors. So Pamela said you didn't hear me that time. So it worked. We figured it out. We figured it out this time. So let me see where I was at. All right. A few more comments here. And DYM said, where can I get the book? Go to, which book we talking about? If you want this book right here, go to workonyourgamebook.com. This book, Work on Your Game, and then the word book.com. You can also get this book. This is my most popular book right now, The Third Day. This is all about how you show up and give your best effort when you least feel like it. Go to thirddaybook.com. A lot of times you got to get that word book in the domain name because the rest of the terms are already taken. So thirddaybook.com and workonyourgamebook.com. I can't put links in here, so I would just put the link in there, but they don't let me do it. Lee and Lisa said, can I teach my husband to get over insecurities? How? Absolutely. You can teach anyone anything that's mental it's the most accessible to teach. I'm not going to say it's easy, but it's the most accessible. You absolutely can teach him, but I would need more information, Lee and Lisa. That question is very broad, but I have whole programs on mindset. My foundational program on mindset is called Bulletproof Mindset. So that might help somebody like your husband. Go to dreuniversity.com. The one, term limits. We need them. I don't know how it's going to happen. Carla, thank you for pushing the 50,000 likes here today. We did it very well here. I almost said the K word. I don't know if I should say it on TikTok. Flynn said political pandering is prostitution. What do you mean by that? Every politician panders, though. So I guess that would make them all prostitution. Stacey said, yes, they got 2 years. Yeah, and the only reason they got 2 years is because had it not been January 6th, they may have gotten away with probation or a fine. But the only reason they got 2 years is because of the event that it was around. It's not because them walking in the building is some crazy thing. It's because they overdid it on everybody. Appreciate you, Carla. Thank you, Carla. Carla, you're like my unofficial moderator here. Carla, maybe I have my assistant DM you, make you a moderator. Should we make Carla, Indiana, a moderator for these lives? I think so. What do y'all think? Put yes if we should make Carla a moderator for these lives. Brittany is also one of my moderators, but I haven't seen Brittany in the last couple of days. I appreciate you, Pamela. Thank you for coming in as usual. I know I'm over time here, so I'm going to get to a few more of these comments, and then we'll wrap this one up. Fire G, what are you talking about? Javon said, what happens when we need another country, but they don't need us? They might. Do they leave us to pass away? They might, Javon. Welcome to life. This is the way it works. Yes, this is the way it works. And it's not even that the United States is leaving the U country to disintegrate. As you can see, Mr. Z was invited to the country to come meet with the Trump administration this past week. So it's not like we just said, well, hey, good luck, Mr. Z. We are negotiating with him. But what Trump was doing was actually making a clear line and helping Mr. Z understand, dude, don't wait till the cameras come around and try to start talking tough. You don't have the power. And in the future, if the United States is in a position where we need another country, we can't send our president to their country. And then when the cameras come on, start talking tough like we're dictating the terms, because they would do the same thing to us and say, hold on, you have no power here. Like, stop pretending. Stop flexing for the camera. You don't have power. Calm down and stay in your place. And we're the ones helping you. So don't act like it's something other than what it is. So, Javon, your question is actually a straw man question, because that's not what I said. Deborah Graves said, you can give up a little or give up a lot. Exactly. That's the situation. Butterfly 83 Howard, good morning to you. Carla said, why was I like VP? Who is VP? You know who he is now. The president of the R country, that guy. Jish said, got it. So world politics should be determined by schoolyard bullying. That's an easy frame for a straw man comment. So when you use the word so to reframe what I said, we know you're about to change into something that I didn't say. Lee said you have to scroll down to get new questions. Yeah, well, that's what I'm doing. I just got to go through all of them. Carlos said you skip over the middleman and go for the leader. Yeah. What did Z say that was so bad? It's not even about it being bad or good, just because this is not elementary school. It's about him talking as if he was the one dictating the terms of the situation. And Trump and JD said to him, dude, you're not dictating here. Stop acting like you're dictating. You're not. It wasn't anything specifically he said. It was his energy and his posture, his verbal posture, not his physical posture. And they called him out on it. Brandon Jones said, just saying that you were on point. Thank you, sir. Liz said the invasion what invasion are you talking about? What invasion? I don't know of an invasion at the U.S. border. But if there was one, tell me. TDV said we can't say country name on TikTok. Certain names I cannot say. I can say Brazil. I can say the USA. But there are other countries' names who, specifically the countries that are in conflict right now, the R country and the U country. About 4 months ago, I was talking and I said the R country's name and immediately it came up on the screen. It didn't say don't say that, but it was like some kind of warning. So I knew it was because of that. I said it twice and immediately it flashed up on the screen. So TDV films, the answer is no. Certain countries' names you cannot say on this platform. A country exactly. It was bad during the virus. Just say the virus. I have no friends there. I have friends there and it was awful. Yeah, I heard. So there's certain things you got to be careful saying on these apps. So you just got to, my mind automatically works in this way. So I know when I can say whatever I want. When I'm on my own platforms just talking, I say all of these things and I say names and I cuss and all of these things. But on this platform specifically, the one whose camera I'm looking at right now, that starts with the letter T, there are certain things that you can't say. Same way if I'm giving a speech, a keynote speech somewhere. Yeah, I know not to curse. That you got to learn how to tailor your language based on who you're talking to. Some people call that code switching. I don't really call it code switching. I just call it adjusting to the environment as necessary. So I guess it's the same thing. So everybody's saying yes. So Carla, I guess you've been nominated. Or do you accept the nomination that would make Carla a moderator for these lives? Nikki said Dre University. Yes. Nikki, I think it was you who told me to get, well, you said Dre University. That's when I went and got it. Yeah. Stacy D, he had the Confederate flag, and oh, even worse, Stacy. That's why he got 2 years because of that flag. So Carla said, I think more people will benefit from hearing your opinions and take on issues. I agree with you. Thank you. So I can't do it now, but when I get done with the live, I'll tell my assistant to make you a moderator, Carla. So then in the future, you can, Carla, what you'll be able to do is pin comments and stuff. So if you see a good comment, you can pin it so I can see it, and that'll help me get through the comments faster. And I'll find out more. I don't even know that much about TikTok. It's probably a bunch of stuff I can do on TikTok I don't even know about. They just said, Z is the one asking for the camera. That was not normal. He planned it. Yeah, of course we know he planned it. We know he did that for the camera. Cashville said, the Z, I think you mean calm down. Yeah, of course he didn't have a choice because he was getting called out to his face. Not strong man, straw man. Dana, straw man. STRAW. What is a straw man? A lot of people, y'all don't know what straw man is? A straw man is when you take something that someone didn't say, you rephrase it into something that take something that someone did say, rephrase it into something that they didn't say, and then you argue against it. So if I say something like, I like eating hamburgers, and you say, oh, so you just think all animals should lose their lives just so you can have a hamburger? That's a straw man question because that's not what I said. Just because I like eating hamburgers doesn't mean I don't care about the lives of animals. You get it? So a straw man is when you reframe someone's position to be something other than their position, usually making it sound ridiculous. And then you kind of use some form of sarcasm to make it seem like what they said was something crazy when it's not even what they said. So people do that often when they hear something that they don't like. So if I say something like, hey, the USA is not responsible for saving other countries when we have problems, and someone says, oh, so you're saying if the USA ever needs another country, then they just leave us to be destroyed? Great. All right, see the sarcasm there? That's how people talk when they hear something that they disagree with. That's a form of a straw man question. Whereas a steel man, this is a lesser known concept, the steel man question or the steel man frame doesn't have to be a question. It can be a comment, but it's basically a frame. A steel man is when you take someone's argument, is what I did over the last 2 days, is when you take someone's position, even if you disagree with it, and you actually make their argument for them, and you make their argument even better than they can make it. And then you accept, hey, I understand why they're saying this. I understand this part, but this is the part I disagree with. So a steel man is something that someone who's a lawyer, for example, has to be very good at the steel man frame, because a lawyer has to understand before they go to trial that the other side has a position, and you have to know what their position is so that you can argue against it. And you can't act like every single thing that they say is wrong. They do have some strong points. And if you're talking to someone and you refuse to acknowledge any quality of point that they're making, then you don't really sound credible, because no way that you're talking to someone who has like zero good points. Every side to every argument has some good points, even if you disagree with it. So the steel man is having the emotional capacity and the intellectual integrity to just acknowledge when someone else makes a good point, even if you disagree with their overall position. So, like I said, I disagree with people going into the building on January 6th. That was probably not a good idea, because they know, you're trespassing, you're going to get a penalty for trespassing. And I disagree with them doing it. At the same time, I appreciate them doing it, and I recognize why they did it, because it was their way of letting the government know, whether they were thinking about it intellectually or not, that you can't just keep disrespecting us or ignoring us, and we're not going to do anything about it. So I understand both sides of the position. And if someone from January 6th came into this office right now and talked to me, I said, I appreciate you doing what you did, because I wouldn't have done that, but I appreciate you doing it, because that message needed to be sent. So that's how you kind of steel man somebody's position. Don't just act like anything that somebody else says that you don't like just must be ridiculous. Most human beings have that affliction, that they have a very hard time listening to something that they disagree with without going into sarcasm and making it seem like the other person is just a complete fool. But if the other person you're talking to is a fool, why are you talking to him? Because you know what they said. If you argue with a fool, it's hard to tell from a distance which one is the fool. Heidi said, when people fold their arms, it usually means close to negotiating. Depending on context, Heidi. I get what you're saying. It depends on the context. Like, I might fold my arms when I'm talking to somebody because it's cold and the AC is too high, and that's why I got my arms folded. But I might be happy with what you're saying. So it depends on the context. In that context, I agree with what you're saying, Heidi, that Mr. Z did look defensive in that position, and he probably was defensive. But the folded arms alone, out of context, does not necessarily mean defensiveness. Z dress code, or he was going to the pool hall. It looks like he dresses like that all the time. I've seen him like that all the time. Me and Lisa said, you can make money from your lives. That I do know. Me and Lisa, that part I know about. All right, there's some other things I don't know about. That part I do know. And they show me at the end of the live, they'll show me like, you made $3 from this live, from like gifts and badges and all that stuff. That part I know about. If I'm gonna know about something, I'm gonna know how the money gets made. Patriot Monarch, thank you. Laura said, I do the steel man approach and usually follow it up with sources. That's great. You go into those sources, then you might start losing people, because now you're asking them to think. So be careful. Be careful who you use that with. Not everybody wants to think. Laura said, I link those sources, show them where they got it right and where they got it wrong. Okay, fair enough. But who are you talking to when you're doing it? You're talking like on social media? You're talking to a regular person? Who are you talking to? Johnny came in with the country of the U flag. All right, if you support them, that's fine, Johnny. I don't have a problem with you supporting them, but what's your point? If you have a substantial point, Johnny, share the point. I want to hear the point. And you don't have to troll here. Just share your point if you have any. Oh, we got the 60,000 likes. I don't know if I ever got 60,000 likes on a live. I think maybe when I was talking about the biggest live I ever did on TikTok was about a week before the election, when I said why Trump will win. And if y'all want to understand the steel man, I did 2 lives right before the election. I did one, why Kamala is going to win. And that was my biggest one ever up to that point. Because I didn't start doing live on TikTok till like August of last year, September maybe. So I did one that said why Kamala was going to win. That was the biggest live I ever did. Then the next day, I did why Trump was going to win. It did twice as many viewers as the Kamala one. And I think that's the biggest one I ever did still to this day, was that one. This one is not quite there, but because that one I did that day, it was like 500 people watching at the same time, like throughout the whole live. Today, it wasn't quite that. I think the biggest we have is about 150. The way Z dresses is Yeezy collection. Nikki said, it would be cool if you did a live for 8 hours. Well, if a subject came up in which I could talk about it for 8 hours, I would do it. Even this one today, I had a lot of points and I only talked for 2 hours. Like, I'm done with my points. So for me to cover another 8 hours, that would have to be me just responding to the stuff that y'all say. And I'm at the bottom of the comments. So this is only 2.5. I would do 8 hours. I need a subject. There was something crazy what had to happen in the world to which a lot of people want to talk about it, that I could do 8 hours straight. And I would have to clear my schedule also. I actually have things to do. I run a business, so I have things I actually need to do today. So I couldn't clear a whole 8 hours today. But I would if there was a good enough reason. Patramonarchy said, Pat is easier to say. All right, I'll call you Pat from now on. Laura said, both. If I see someone on either side spreading incorrect info, I'll post or send them links. But yes, I had to be careful, but if I make sure I don't source new outlets. And you got to keep it simple enough that people can keep up with you, or you don't want to go over people's heads. And I'll follow with a government website source. But where are you having these conversations, Laura? That's my question to you. Where are you doing this when you're sending people links and et cetera? Because again, you can send somebody a link, doesn't mean they're going to click on it or read it. So that's why I'm asking, what's the context in which you're doing this? Because I can sit here and read you all links from the government, but do you really want to hear that? It's boring to some people to give them information. Too much information is boring to people. That's one thing I know. I've been on the internet for 20 years, publishing, not consuming, publishing for 20 years. If you're going to give people information, like I gave you all information here today, but I mixed in a lot of information with my style of communication. I'm mixing in some of my perspectives, my opinions. I'm arguing different sides of the conversation. If I just sat here and gave you information, most of you would listen to it for like 30 seconds and you would leave. Information is boring. So if you really want to keep and you want to maintain an audience, you have to kind of give them some type of, got to be some kind of show, quote unquote, with it. You want to see an example of this? Look at Donald Trump. He gives you a show. Even if you don't like what he's saying, you watch because you want to see what he's going to do. You want to hear what he's going to say. He's entertaining. Entertainment does not have to be something you like. Laura said, news. Your delivery is clear. Tiffany said, your delivery is clear and to the point. Highly appreciated. Thank you, Tiffany. I appreciate the compliment. Laura said, partially on TikTok and partially to my friends and some family members. Okay. Well, if it works for you, it doesn't work for me. And at the same time, what I like to do is take the information that I do know to be true and I just frame it in my own words. So basically what I've been doing with you all here today. I'm not really referencing links or sources to you all. I just get the information. I come to an understanding of the information and then I disseminate my understanding to you through my own language. That's my style. I'm not saying it's right or wrong because Laura, your style probably works for you. My style works for me. So I don't try to be like information links and I don't like to do all that. I like to just understand it. And then I use my own voice to get the point across to you. And hopefully I explain it compendiously enough that you all get my point. That's my approach. Brandon on Instagram, good morning, said, if you hit first, they can always get you in trouble with the cops. Yeah, I understand. But that's why they had to actually be an aggressor, Brandon. So if you feel physically threatened. So assaults, by legal terms, assault is a threat. Battery is when you actually do something. So if I walk up to you and say, I'm going to punch you in the face, that's assault, even if I don't do it. Battery is if I actually punch you. So if I threaten you, then punch you, then it's assault and battery. If I just punch you, it's just battery. And if I just threaten you, it's assault. And again, you have to prove these things in the court of law. But if you feel like someone is physically threatening you, you have a right to defend yourself. At the same time, you would have to go to court and prove why you had a right to defend yourself. And that's when the legal fees come in. And that's why we want cops everywhere so that you don't have to do that because you got to spend your own money on that lawyer. You got to go to court. And there's a whole fiasco of nonsense you got to deal with. Even if you were right to defend yourself, you got to spend all that money and all that time. That's why we want cops everywhere. I want cops everywhere that I go so that any idiots around get handled by the cops instead of getting handled by me. So if I'm somewhere and an idiot comes around, I say, hey, excuse me, officer, come deal with this person. And then I walk away and the cop deals with them. That's what I want. Because if I had to deal with them, then that might end up costing me, even if I'm right. That's the problem. That's the problem with America and the justice system in general. That you got to spend money to prove your innocence, which is ridiculous. Laura said, my dad and I are mostly on separate aisles of the political spectrum, so we have many conversations. As long as your dad's willing to have an open conversation, that's great. Not everybody's parents are open to those conversations. Liz said, this has been the most entertaining 5 weeks. You ain't seen nothing yet, Liz. Wait for the next 5 weeks. And this is only what? March? So it hasn't been 2 months yet. So I think there's a lot more to come, especially as Elon keeps digging in. Elon's going to piss a lot of people off because he wasn't elected. So people are just mad about that. So he's going to piss a lot of people off. Thank you, Carla. 65,000 is excellent. Laura said, my favorite customers at the smoke shop I work were the cops, especially when I worked alone. Yeah, exactly. I want a cop in there the whole time. If I'm a female or a female I know, I want a cop around all day when she's at work. Thoughts on the Z-Man? 11 Bravo, we've been talking about that for the last 2 hours. Where you been? Cash Money, do you think it's okay for people in America to carry? Absolutely. Of course. Do I think it's okay? It's the law. Cash Money. It's not about if I think it's okay. The law says you can carry a concealed weapon if you have a permit or a license to do so. And it depends on what type of weapon we're talking, because there's a device called a burner. Y'all familiar with the burner? I was just looking at this weekend. So the burner is this. It's technically a weapon, but I think a lot of people like it's called the burner, this thing right here. I probably should show this on the screen. TikTok might not like it. So they say no background checks. It's legal in all 50 states. It ships directly to your door. And they got a whole bunch of, so this is called a launcher. It's technically not a GUN. It's technically not, because there's a whole legal term around it. And they have it on the website that explains it. That is not because of the actual technology that they use. This uses a CO2 cartridge. So that technically makes it not a GUN. It's technically not a firearm. It's a, what do they call it? The alternative to lethal force is what they call it. But they say explore less lethal options. So it looks like one, but it's actually not one by technical definition, which means you don't have to have a license to have it. If you have a felony on your record, you can have one of these. And if you're traveling in between states, you can have this with you. So you can have it if you're in one state and you're driving to another state, you can keep this with you and you're not breaking the law. And you could actually travel with it. You can get on a plane and travel. You got to put in your checked baggage, but you could take this with you from Miami to New York, for example. But at the same time, I have friends who are very well versed when it comes to firearms. If you pull this out and use it, you're still going to get treated like somebody who pulled out a real firearm. So that doesn't mean you can be reckless just because you have one. I had a friend who was telling me about this actually just this morning, because we've been talking about this. And she was saying, if you pull that out, the cop's still going to treat you like somebody with a regular firearm, and you still going to have to appear in front of a judge and justify why you pulled it out and all those things. But you don't need a license to have it. So any of you who can't get a license or something like that, or you don't want to go through all that, you can get one for yourself. You can get one for your wife or the woman in your life and all those things. All right, so my iPad, that's what I'm streaming on here on TikTok. It's told me that we're at 10% battery, so it is time for this to go. That thing is called a burner, BYRNA. So those of you who don't know, can somebody put that in the comments? BYRNA.com. Can somebody put that in the comments? BYRNA.com. That's the name of it. So go to their website, BYRNA.com. I've heard about it many times, and I have some friends. No, BYRNA, yes, .com. I have some friends who are strong 2A followers. I got friends in all different walks of life. I got friends from everywhere. Red areas, blue areas, middle America, rural, city people. I know people everywhere. So they told me about the burner a long time ago. And then I heard it. I hear ads. They do a lot of ads now and stuff. And I'm going to get one of these. I might get two of them. I might get one for the house and one for me to carry around. And regular firearms, got that too. And so, and I want to take some classes. I want to get better at using it, because I'm walking around in a suit. I ain't fighting nobody in a suit. You approach me recklessly when I'm in a suit. We're not fighting. It's either going to be a cop there, or I'm pulling out the one of those things. So anyway, not a threat, just a realization. So we got to wrap this up, because I'm about to be out of battery on TikTok and over here on Instagram. I'm on a computer over here on YouTube. The replays to all of this will be on YouTube. Jason says he owns one, so there you go. Yeah, so Jason's comment right there is telling y'all what y'all need to understand. Go to their website. They got a lot of information on their website that explains it. So for any of you who doesn't want to go through the legal process of getting a weapon, you can get one of those, and you can order it on the website right now today, and they'll mail it to you within like a week. Because again, I was just looking at it. So in my cart is like $800 worth of stuff. So anyway, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern is when I do these. I might do the one on the government tomorrow. We'll see what's happening in the news. I do look at the news to see what's happening, because I might get a topic from current events. My battery's about to die. I went to the bathroom, so I'm good. I don't need to run to the bathroom. So thank you all for sitting through the bathroom break. I'm glad we were able to incorporate that into what we got going here. Carla's going to be our new moderator. So everybody shout out to Carla for helping push us to 66,000 like I said, not a new moderator, but a new moderator. She's going to be an additional moderator here on these lives. And we will see you all tomorrow at 8 a.m. Eastern. We might not go 2.5 hours tomorrow, maybe 2 hours, maybe an hour and a half, depending on the subject, depending on the engagement that we're having, be longer or shorter. everybody, I appreciate your time and attention. Thank you, Laura, for coming in as well. If you are not following me on Instagram, follow me on Instagram. If you're not subscribed to my YouTube, subscribe to my YouTube. All these replays, you want to see this whole thing all over again. If you came in the middle or you came in late, the whole thing will be on YouTube as soon as I'm done. And if it's not on as soon as I'm done, it means something hiccuped with the stream. I will just download it and upload it to YouTube. So it'll be on YouTube this morning as soon as I'm done. So just go to my YouTube channel. You can find that and a bunch of other things I've talked about in the past. DreUniversity.com. You want to work with me on a professional level, and you can learn more about what we do over there. I will see you all tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Eastern. Thank you, Stacey. Y'all have a great day. We out of here.